What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of our WandaVision recap, as well as a MCU weekly news recap as well. I am one of your hosts, Elliot, here from Movie Files, and I'm so excited to be here for episode 2. Again, we're going to be diving into episode 3 of Wanda. So full spoilers, if you haven't seen the episode quite yet, go check it out and then come back and watch the replay. Enjoy the conversation in the comments below. But I'm not doing this by myself. I have my amazing co-host that I will be bringing in, and we have 2 special guests that I am big fans of and can't wait to talk about WandaVision with them. But before we introduce our co-host and our special guests, if you haven't already, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the YouTube algorithm. I want to get as many people on this conversation as possible, talking about WandaVision, talking about the MCU and all that fun stuff, and just having a great time with the community. But also do me a favor and support these content creators. All their links are in the description below. So support their YouTube channels, check out their content, subscribe to their content, check out their Instagrams, their Twitters, all that fun stuff, because they are amazing content creators and they have a lot of great opinions. So check them out as well. And of course, for those that are watching this live, this is all about the community. This is all about the conversation. So continue to throw your questions in the chat, theories, predictions, pros, cons of the episodes. And of course, once we get to the movie news, I want to get your thoughts on that as well. So definitely let's have a good time with this. And of course, those watching on the replay, thank you for clicking on the video and definitely leave your thoughts in the comments as well. So with me getting that out of the way, I want to introduce my co-host first. Back for episode 2, the one and only Amanda. What's going on?
Hey, I'm so excited to talk about episode 3. It was so great, and it's just gonna keep building each and every single episode. It's gonna get better and better. So I'm excited to have this discussion.
No doubt, Amanda. And again, this is one of our co-hosts, one of 2. But Amanda, if this is the person's first time tuning in, if you want to let the people know where they can find you, a little bit about your content, all that fun stuff, go right ahead.
Yeah, so right here, it's AMX ND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You guys can find me on YouTube over at Candid Cinema and my website, candidxcinema.com. I have Sundance coming up, so I'm really excited. So yeah, you guys can find me there, and I'm revamping my YouTube. And it'll be up, I guess, in the next couple of weeks or so. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. And Sundance has got a lot of good stuff coming out in a couple weeks. So excited to see your coverage on that. So like Amanda said, guys, check her out, subscribe to her channel, as well as follow her on Twitter. And then bringing in my second co-host, my guy, Chris, man. What's going on, man? How we doing today?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Happy Saturday, everybody.
Happy Saturday, my friend. Hey, man, if you want to let the people are tuning in for the first time, Chris, if you want to let them know about your YouTube channel and all the fun stuff, man, go right ahead, my friend.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. First and foremost, of course, thanks for having me. Good to be with the homie Amanda again. We back at it 2 in a row. And like the description says here, I'm at Tate's Take on YouTube. So you want to look at movie reviews, I do TV reviews, documentaries, all that stuff. You know, you can follow me through the subscribe button on his channel, as well as all my personal social media stuff is in my description. My Instagram, you'll find my Twitter, my email. If you got a business inquiry, you can find me there. So thanks for the platform. Looking forward to talking on WandaVision. Finally caught up to episode 3 with you guys. So I'm happy to be part of the conversation now.
Oh yeah, man. We're gonna be breaking it all down, my friend. I'm loving the shirt there with the Marvel, repping the MCU today, man. We're gonna be talking about some Marvel stuff for sure, man. So those are the co-hosts. Again, subscribe to their channels, check them out. They are awesome people, and we're gonna break it all down. But we also have some special guests coming in to join the conversation. This gentleman here is he's a geek, he's a nerd. He talks about Marvel, DC, he talks about, you know, the Star Wars and so many great stuff. I am so glad he was able to join us because he's in a different time zone, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm talking about the one and only Ren from Ren of Geekness. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here talking WandaVision. Just happy that we have MCU content to talk about every week. So good.
I know. It's been so long, man. Hey, Ren, if this is the first time for people tuning in to you, man, where can the people find you? Tell them a little bit about your channel. The stage is yours, man.
Well, as the name says, I'm a geek, as you presented me, Elliot. You can find me at Ren Geekness on YouTube and Twitter. I do movie reviews, sometimes show reactions, TV reviews, and everything nerdy and geeky, representing the Infinity Saga here in the back. And on Instagram at RenVieira93.
Awesome, awesome, man. I can't wait to dive into your brain about this episode of WandaVision, man, and also just kind of see where you're at with the MCU, and are you excited for this phase 4, man? We're going to break it all down. Excited to have you with us, Ren. And our second special guest. This gentleman's been on my channel most recently for the first time with the Wonder Woman panel that we did a couple weeks ago. But I have had the pleasure to be on his channel talking about this show, Lovecraft Country, Mandalorian, and other discussions. I consider him a really good friend. He's an awesome person. He has a great YouTube channel and a great community he's building over at Film Speak. Talking about the one and only Griffin. What's up, my man?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me, dude. It's great to be here. Great to be talking about WandaVision on your channel and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it because this show is just it's only getting better, man. It's there's a lot of great stuff going on here. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure, Griff. Hey, man, if people, for whatever reason, don't know what Film Speak's about, man, if you want to tell them a little bit about your channel and where they can find you, man, go right ahead.
Yeah, so you can head on over to the Film Speak channel if you want. We cover entertainment on there pretty frequently, interviews, video essays, movie reviews, television coverage, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in a little bit more of an analytical dive into all this film stuff, then yeah, definitely head over there.
No doubt, guys. And also congratulations, Griff, on the recent milestone, man, of the 10K. Again, all these people have great communities, man. Check them out. There's some great people, and they know what they're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, so show them some support. So with that being said, before we get into the conversation, definitely want to do a quick shout out to the people that's tuning in. Tony Movie Chappie, what's going on? We got some people saying what's up. We got Jay Manley in the building. We got Eric saying what's up to everybody. Again, guys, thank you for tuning in. And we want to have a great conversation. So again, we're going to dive deep into this episode of WandaVision, which I think was titled Now in Color, if I'm not mistaken, which these titles are just so on the nose. I kind of love that. So let's just kind of jump into it, ladies and gentlemen, in regards to this recap here. So first initial thoughts. Well, I guess I'll start with our special guest, starting off with Ren. What are just kind of your thoughts on the first two episodes regarding, were you a fan of them? Were you kind of on the fence with them? Just kind of your initial thoughts of the first two episodes since we didn't have you last week.
I was a big fan of the first two episodes. I enjoyed how small they were, only because I know there's more to come. That's because, again, I'm a nerd. I'm super invested into the MCU already. I'm super invested in these characters. It's an episode that I don't think, because it wasn't released with episode 3, it might not appeal to the general crowd that's just tuning in to watch a TV show randomly. Yeah. But I think for us who are into this, I want to speculate, I want to have these conversations like this one right here. It was really fun, but then without getting ahead of myself, episode 3 is the one that really gets into it.
No doubt, no doubt. And Griff, we talked about it on your channel last week when we talked about episode 1 and 2. But if you want to let the audience know just kind of your general thoughts of the first two episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I love the first two episodes for sure. And I might be in the minority, whereas like I liked the first two episodes more than this episode, maybe just because I was already on board with just sort of like Wanda and Vision living in a sitcom and seeing how they were trying to domesticate and like the way they were acting. It was just, I don't know, it was just like really refreshing and charming, and it allowed the actors to really, you know, go places that we've never seen these characters go before. So I loved those first two episodes. This one here, I also am a big fan of, and I think this is the episode that's sort of like opening the gate for like the rest of what's going to happen this season. So we're definitely going to get more of, you know, the multiverse and like a sword obviously coming in and stuff like that. So, listen, all 3 episodes were really solid, but like you said, I believe you said this when we were recapping the show, I think they should have premiered all 3 episodes that first week. And then this week should have been the beginning with episode 4 and stuff like that.
That perfect segue, Griffin, because I was actually going to mention that kind of going into this panel here with episode 3, and we'd love to get your thoughts on this, Amanda. But I personally think that they should have given us the first 3 episodes, because I think just narratively speaking, it spoke to the first episode with the Hart family. Why no kids? Why haven't you been married? Why are you here? And we literally get that in the first 3 episodes. They get married at the end of episode 1. They have, they're part of the community by the end of episode 2, and they have the children by episode 3. So I think it just would have played a lot better, especially since we know it's 9 episodes. First act, second act being 4 through 6, third act being 7 through 9. So just your thoughts on that, Amanda. Should we have gotten the first 3 episodes, or was it okay that we kind of got that break between episode 1 and 2 and then 3?
I think if like releasing 1 and 2 first, it kind of lost people, because I know the general audience was like, what is happening? Like my mother, for example, she watched the first 2 episodes and I had to explain everything to her, whereas my dad was on the same page as me and he understood. So we had really interesting discussions that way. I do think that it should have been all 3 episodes, because it's gonna like, like you said, a 3-part structure that way. They should release like 3 episodes at a time if it's going to be that kind of connectivity to close off like those acts. If you get what I'm saying, like I think that they should do a 3 at a time instead. They won't do that, but it should be 3 at a time. I do think that the 3rd episode is the best one so far. I really enjoyed it, and there's so much to unpack. So.
I'm right there with you. I think the 3rd episode is my favorite out of the 3 this far. But tossing over to you, Chris, about this whole 3 episodes should have been dropped at once, or just kind of looking at the calendar and knowing that some movies may or may not be delayed in 2021. Literally 2 weeks after WandaVision ends, we're getting Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Then we're getting Black Widow, and then we're getting Loki. So I think calendar and schedule-wise, they probably didn't want to drop everything at once, especially giving us 3 episodes, because it would have been like a 3-week gap. But do you think they should have went with the 3 episodes just out of the gate, or are you okay with the launching of the first 2 and now 3?
I agree that it makes sense to give 3 episodes, especially now seeing it yesterday, how it would have played out into, like you said, like a first act. Yeah. I would imagine Disney didn't do it for, like storyline purposes. I'm sure it was just the calendar, like you said.
Yeah.
Because then at one point, like, it doesn't even make sense to give us 2. Then you could have just given us 1, then 1, because like those 2 don't go together. Like the 3 of them really go together, and it's kind of like, okay, you guys are gonna stumble through these first 2, especially if you're like a casual fan. We talked about this last week. You're gonna stumble through these first 2. When you get to the 3rd, the casual fans might get a little, okay, I see what's happening here. When like the geeks like us, we're like digging through everything, piece by piece. But to give 2 just seems kind of random and arbitrary. So, in a perfect world, we would have gotten 3. But I would imagine it was a Disney business move rather than a storyline move.
Yeah, no doubt. And tossing it to you, Ren, to get your thoughts on it. I think if they would have just dropped the 1 episode last week, it would have definitely a lot of people probably wouldn't have come back for episode 2, just because it was just, not for everyone, for some people that's especially not tied into the MCU. But just your thoughts, Ren, on the launching of the first 3 episodes, and just kind of your general thoughts on the 3rd episode being, the launching pad.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, because releasing after seeing the 3rd episode, it feels weird that they only released the first 2. Because if they had released 1 episode, I don't think we would even having this conversation of how should they have released it, like just 1 episode per week. Yeah, that's how they do it. They did it with Mandalorian. They're probably going to do that with other shows. It would feel natural. But after seeing this episode, it very much feels like the end of the first act of what the show is going to be.
Yeah.
So it feels odd that they separated it and made us wait. Because I even rewatched the third episode with the other 2, like this morning. This morning I just watched the 3 together, and they go so well. The pacing is so good, and it really feels like they finished this mini arc before expanding on what the show as a whole will be.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, I think, for the arc-wise, and also just doing the time. I think the first episode was like 29 minutes, second episode was 33, and this one was 29 as well. So it's literally like the first hour of a film, and now we're kind of jumping to the second half. But just kind of jump into the episode now. We're in the 70s, and we're playing into kind of the Brady Bunch. We get an intro. I still think intro 2, the WandaVision intro, is my favorite kind of theme song of the show thus far. But I like this kind of connection with the Brady Bunch kind of analogy of the family. They're finally coming together. They have the boys coming, and we'll talk about Tommy and Billy here in a bit. But just starting with you, Griff, what were your thoughts on kind of entering the 70s and just kind of appreciating the long intro that we get, where it's like the songs just keep on going for shows back in the 70s and 80s, but just your thoughts on us now being in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, like, I love the fact that the show is kind of like going through the decades and really putting a lot of time and care into authentically depicting the sitcoms of that era. And obviously with the 70s, there's a lot to choose from. And, the show we're playing more into family sitcoms, what better way to do that than with the Brady Bunch? So I thought it was great, and like Paul Bettany with the long hair and everything was it's amazing, the get up and all that stuff, and I thought they really took advantage of the time period in a interesting way, and so I dug being in the 70s. Whether we'll be there for next week's episode or not, who knows? Maybe next week will be the 80s. We'll see, but it was fun.
Toss it into you, Amanda, being in the 70s now, as it's titled, Now We're in Color, the bright colors, the intro of Vision building a toy set and all that fun stuff. What were your thoughts on kind of entering the 70s?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I love the Brady Bunch. I used to watch reruns as a kid. They're actually, it's on now. I found a channel like around 6 p.m. my time. They actually have it on, so I watch it while I have dinner.
Nice.
But it's fun, and I really like that now in color. I think the 70s for playing with color, like for fashion statements, was a really smart move as well because they kind of went wild with it. It was a lot of fun. So even like Geraldine with the blues, I really like. I loved it. It made everything pop, and it just looked really good, like really crisp with the colors. Even Vision, like the red, like really prominent. It was really, like awesome that way. It's exciting. I actually really liked this opening sequence better than the first two. I'm so sorry, but I really enjoyed it. You got to see more of the 70s. I feel like get into it authenticity wise. So I just can't wait. I did tweet out before. I said if they do the 90s and they don't do a Full House reference, I think it's so I think that was really cool too.
Oh, I would love the Olsen twins to make a cameo and be like one of the people in the neighborhood. That would just, or Uncle Jesse or someone make an appearance for that. That would be just perfect. But tossing it to you, Red, man. We're now in the 70s. We're embracing color. What were your thoughts on just kind of this new transition into this new decade?
Oh, I fell in love immediately. Like a small side note, as soon as I saw that intro, the fact that they're in the 70s, it's color. I just want to see Paul Bettany as the next Doctor Who. I don't know if anybody here gets that reference.
Yeah.
That's what I want now. And it just feels so different, but at the same time, so weirdly organic for the show to take this direction. And given the events of this episode, again, with the family dynamic and being an homage, let's say, to the Brady Bunch, what they can do next to me is going to blindside a lot of people, because I think this episode offers the most clues, let's say that, to what's actually going on. So yeah, this episode definitely my favorite so far, and big ups for being in the 70s with all the colors, because I love the 70s visual when it comes to movies, the way they use colors, and this episode did really, really well.
And kind of bouncing off that point, Chris, this appreciating, I guess, the set design, the costuming, the attention to detail, and just your general thoughts on us now being the 70s, man.
Yeah, I was all for it, and I talked about this last week. I've never watched the Dick Van Dyke Show or the what's the other one, the main one, I Love Lucy. So I don't watch any of those old shows, so I didn't get to appreciate it. Like, you know, like Amanda said, like she was a big fan of those kind of things. So I was like, okay, cool. So the 70s, I was like, okay, now we're getting to something that I could appreciate. And I remember growing up, I was a big fan of the Brady Bunch movie. That's how I discovered the Brady Bunch TV show. I didn't even know it was a show. Yeah, I was like, oh, I thought this was like they invented this. But it's a cool little parallel because like even in the Brady Bunch movies, that's a 90s movie, but it's like they're stuck in the 70s in this house. So it's like they're living in a sitcom, but the rest of the world is not. So it's kind of very like WandaVision-y. But overall, I just like that whole like just coming into the color, like it's more like to the shows that I'm more familiar with, and I know I hope that they get to like the 80s and 90s. And if Elizabeth cannot get her sisters in the Full House episode, I don't know what we're gonna do. And I want to see like Family Matters too. Like I want to see like let's diversify the sitcoms. They're not have to be like all white shows.
Yeah, so, man, get Urkel in the mix, man. Let's get get Urkel in the mix. But no, yeah, just like you guys said, I appreciate being in the 70s. We're now in color. They're embracing it, and it's just been so much fun. So capping off the first couple minutes here, we see that the doctor is now checking on Wanda, who's now her pregnancy is kind of super exceeded as far as timeline wise. And I'm just kind of thinking about the importance of these babies coming so soon. And we'll talk more about Tommy and Speed, but just kind of your thoughts, starting with you, Ren, on this kind of accelerated pace of Wanda now having these kids. Does it have anything to do with Speed being in the mix? Because and we'll talk about his powers, but it would make sense that he would come so quickly. These kids would come so fast because literally Speed is like Quicksilver. But what's your thoughts on this kind of this reality that we're in? These children are coming so quickly.
I think it could very well be that, but it also could be due to the fact that this is all a fantasy, an idealistic fantasy on the part of Wanda. Like, she does not wish to wait to have children. She just wishes to have children, and that's it. So I think that could be a factor, but what you just said about the speed and being super fast and coming in overnight, that also would make a lot of sense. The weirdest thing I thought throughout that episode was when they were discussing names, and I knew she was going to have twins. I knew she was going to have the two boys. And when they were saying Billy, I was like, that's not his name from the comics, because I forgot to connect that Billy is for William. But that's not to get ahead of myself, but that's probably my second favorite sequence of the episode, when they're trying to get the babies out and get them to be born, and Vision goes to get the doctor, and Monica Rambeau stays in to help Wanda. I'm calling her Monica Rambeau, not calling her the other name.
Same.
But it's really fun. It really shows how they can embrace the wackiness, and it's so weird to see these two characters that we know from Avengers: Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War, and all these movies, and now they're in a sitcom. It feels that they meshed it so well that only these two could embrace that wackiness, and it's really, really fun to watch. And now it adds those other layers to it that are introduced later in the episode.
Yeah, no doubt. And shooting it over to you, Amanda, just kind of the like Rim was saying, these babies are coming so soon because it's a fantasy. It's a warped reality. She's creating her own universe. But your thoughts on the doctor coming by and the babies are coming. They are here actually by the end of this episode. But just kind of your thoughts on the first few minutes of the episode.
I thought it was hilarious because of Vision's reactions, not even Wanda, because Wanda was so chill. Like, yeah, okay, I'll have the babies as soon as possible. Like, whatever. Everything was fast tracked, but Vision was like losing his mind for fatherhood for some strange reason. But Wanda was so chill, which I actually found completely odd for some reason.
Yeah.
Because like you're going to be a mother. Like I know you're happy, but like you're going to be a mother, or shouldn't you be like a little bit more like nervous or worried or trying to read books or something like that? But she was so chill. So I thought like that was odd. And then obviously to play off of Vision, him like floating up while like Wanda was having the contractions, like it was just, oh my god, the breathing exercise was just and then, like yeah, like it was just so funny. But also it showed how powerful she was. Again, like we're seeing more power coming from her. So like the signal overflowing with the contractions, the lights like going off, and then like everything in the neighborhood going like pitch black in the homes too. So the neighbors were kind of like, why the hell did the power go out type of thing, which has Wanda worried as well. So it was just really strong how everything tied in together, and I really enjoyed it.
Definitely. And tossing it to you, Chris, just your thoughts on these babies are coming so fast. Again, does it play into the fact that speed is having some type of influence on the babies coming here? But just your thoughts on this opening sequence. And also, too, just to kind of throw this in the mix, I don't know if you all noticed, but the doctor said that he was going on a holiday, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when he says he can't escape. But I wonder if the doctor was like alluding to like he was given this promise where give birth to the children and we'll let you get out of this reality or whatever the case may be. But just kind of your thoughts on the doctor and his appearance, and also the first opening sequence of the show.
Yeah, I think it ties back to the time speeding up in a crazy way, like to the toaster and I forgot what the other ticking thing was in the last, watch.
Yeah,
so so like even Vision's calculating like by when she should have this kid or these kids, and then the timeline, it's already sped up even before he could even calculate it. So like I think there's like a parallel to all those three timeline things. I also think it's interesting that they keep bringing up like how like misogynistic dudes were back then. So it's like a part of the show, like the doctor, doing the whole like the fruit thing, and then about like this later in the episode, but the nurse like, oh, you can be a nurse, and she's like, I just like deliver this whole kid like So I think it's an interesting like layer that they have in the shows, like in each episode. So I don't know if that's like part of like a bigger like movement or just like what they're trying to do there, but I appreciate that they're like even highlighting it. So yeah.
No doubt. And you just, they brought it up last week, and we all know, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the way that women were treated back then, continue to be treated, but just kind of the housewife and, cooking food and staying home and taking the children, they're definitely kind of playing into that. But shooting over to you, Griff, this kind of the opening sequence of these children coming so quickly, and the doctor alluding to him going on a holiday and maybe getting out of this reality.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to that, like the what you were talking about with like the women's rights during the time period, because I think like for Wanda, she's basing this whole thing off of the media of the era, right? So like the 50s, the 60s, 70s, the sitcoms she grew up watching, which like glamorized what was actually going on at the time. It was like it was like fake. It created this, facade of what, like, the American suburbs were like, how women were treated and whatnot. And so she kind of like takes that and then she kind of like molds it into her own reality. So it is interesting how they're playing off of like, she's using the past to escape the present, basically. And while the past had its own fair share of problems, because the media was so enticing and everything was like carefree and like fun and whatever, she's able to do that. And I think that's a really interesting way of exploring trauma in that regard. But in terms of like the actual episode, like her sort of, or like everything with the doctor, and he's like, oh, I can't seem to get away there. That's sort of like playing into the same thing where it's like Agnes is like, oh, I can't seem to find Ralph, and it's like, well, okay, it's because you can't, or something like that. So I thought it was I just really enjoyed like seeing her just like progressively get more and more pregnant throughout the episode. It was just like happening like that, and like seeing Vision's reaction to that was so funny. Like him sort of just like, and then like, obviously talking about the names and whatnot. The chemistry between Bettany and Olsen is so good. But the stuff with the doctor was great. It was funny. Yeah, for sure.
No, and you guys said it perfectly. Going back to the idea of how they're treating the time period and how women were treated, and that's something I do appreciate about Marvel, and I'm excited for this new phase in regards to the Eternals with a diverse cast. When we jump into Falcon and Winter Soldier, they definitely will be addressing Sam being an African American, being the Black Captain America, even Miss Marvel with Kamala Khan and everything with her traditions and her family. So I'm really excited to see Marvel dive into the conversations. They're at the point now where they don't necessarily, they can take the risks, they can tell their stories and be more authentic to their stories and have people relate for all different races and genders and all that stuff. So it really gets me excited about that. And even a show like this as PG can even dive into the conversation about how women were treated back then. So definitely something I applaud, and thank you all for kind of pointing that out. So going back go right up.
Well, I was just gonna say, and to that point, I was fortunate enough to listen to the press conference where like Jack Schaefer was talking about the writing of that, and she said it was important to like be able to authentically depict the time period, but also like use what they know in the modern era in order to like make it so that it was more accepting for people. At that. And also just like going back to what I was saying, it also helps that this whole thing is like created and manifested by Wanda's imagination. So she can view things from the past through like a modern lens, which is really interesting. All of this is part of what makes this show like so unique.
100%, man. And just cutting back to the recap, when we see Wanda having the contractions and everything going on and the power outage, and again showing, I don't know if it had anything to do with her or do with Wiccan and Speed and Mephisto, maybe with the power outage going on. But I do want to touch on a subject here regarding Vision. Now, we notice in this episode that Vision's starting to notice that things are not right. And the first thing he notices when he goes out to go get the doctor, or I can't remember the sequence that it all played out. I think when he was saying goodbye to the doctor, him going to vacation, he notices that Herb has his, garden tools, and he's cutting through a brick wall. And that's something that's kind of like a glitch in the Matrix, or Herb, again, just at a mental break. But just kind of starting with you, Amanda, Vision. Is this the Vision that we know from the MCU? Is this the Vision that Wanda has created from the aftermath of Infinity War? And we'll talk a little bit about that post-credit scene that was scrapped. But just kind of your thoughts on Vision starting to kind of piece the pieces together, that noticing things are not right.
I kind of think that Vision's her conscience, so that like he's out there. Like I think it's gonna work that way. I don't think Vision is Vision. I even said it in last week's episode, he could be a Skrull, but now that I rewatched episode 3 and I've like read some theories and stuff like that, I feel like she's just projecting another piece of her mind. So it contradicts what she's seeing in this reality. But yeah, she's starting to clue in, because there was a quick edit when he started to say it. So even the editing's been fantastic in the first 3 episodes. Like it really brings everything together. But that quick edit was so jarring. You're like, wait, what? Because before,
Felt like my TV froze or something.
yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, is there a glitch? Like, what happened? Because they did like a rewind effect in the previous 2 episodes where this, like it's cut completely. So I don't think someone else is controlling the situation. I do think it's Wanda after that because she's trying to keep everything perfect. So the second someone says something isn't right, she's like, no, let's go back. I have this reality. No one's changing that type of thing. So yeah.
It was, and that is a good note there, Amanda, regarding that. We saw the rewind with the beekeeper saying no, and we assumed that was Wanda's doing the kind of rewinding situation. But like you just said, this one was much different because it was just like a abrupt ending to like a cut. It was just like a really weird transition. So tossing it over to you, Ren, what's your thoughts on Vision kind of realizing stuff isn't right, and kind of your theories on what vision are we seeing in this show? Is it our vision? Is it, like Amanda said, it's like her subconscious? Scroll, Mephisto, just kind of your thoughts on Vision right now, man.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Amanda said because I think it is her Jiminy Cricket per se. It is her memory of what Vision used to be and what he represents to her, of course. I don't think it is a Skrull only because what we're theorizing right now, that what the show is truly about, I think being a Skrull would take away from that. Yeah. But I definitely think that that Vision is the one innocent party here, because Wanda is responsible for this, whether she realizes it or not. So she's kind of being the bad guy, but Vision is the one that that I think brings her back eventually into the light, making Wanda let him go. And even that cut that they used in this episode really threw me off. I fell for it. I was like, oh, let me go back, because it probably was a mistake from because the Wi-Fi failed or glitched or something. Yeah. So they really got me for a second there.
Wait, I'm trying to remember what cut was that again, because I hadn't watched the episode in a hot, like, since I originally screened the 3 episodes, but like, what was, because I remember there was a part where he was sitting down to talk with Wanda and he's like, yeah, something's not quite right here. Was that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. She's sitting down and
yeah.
So and he says, I just realized something, and then boom, cuts.
Yeah, so it was after the power outage. She's like, oh, the neighbors know type of thing, and that whole thing, which I thought was like even the chemistry between the two of them. I thought it was really like strong because they both balance it and flip the switch at the right times too. So
sorry about that. I had my own little glitch in the matrix there.
These power outages, man.
It's something, man. It's Wanda doing her magic, man. I don't know what's going on over here, but I'll watch the replay to see what Ray said. But tossing it over to I think I haven't had Chris, man. Your thoughts on this Vision kind of noticing some things going on?
Yeah, that was impressively timed. You might want to check like
I'm gonna watch the replay, man.
Financially set up pregnant women in your house. You need to make sure your picture on the wall not spinning around. But I agree with. I don't think it's not Vision, because we mentioned it. I think in last week's episode, like the stone, he has the stone still. So it's like I think the best way to explain it is like this is her memory of Vision, and I think we're getting each episode finding out more that she is in control of all this, or that she did this, whether, like you said, like if she knows it or not. So this episode is the one that finally gives you like, and then it even gives you like, from the neighbors too. Like even Agnes is just like, because they kind of trick us in the beginning. I don't know if they trick us, but the first 2 episodes to say like this girl's up to something, Agnes is up to something. But she had that look of fear when Vision came outside and was speaking to Herb, and for the first time, I think in all the episodes, I was like, oh, she's like vulnerable, like she's a victim of this too, in this moment at least. So you get a lot in this episode that kind of tells you like this is not Vision, and Wanda's behind all this, and she wants to keep this charade going. Like it's the same. Those blips, those rewinds are all at times when things are not going how she sees them or how she wants them to be seen. So I think that's what we're dealing with, and each episode will give us more and more.
No doubt, and to that, I brought it up earlier, and this was kind of some news that came out earlier this week regarding Vision. There was supposed to be a post-credit scene in Endgame, which I actually like that we didn't get a post-credit scene. But Paul Bettany did bring up that there was a scene that was supposed to include Wanda coming across a body bag with Vision inside of it, kind of alluding to the show that we obviously have now, which is WandaVision. So again, I think in Endgame, it was a kind of a nice handoff. We knew that Cap and Winter Soldier, that shows kind of like organically happened, as well as when you look at low-key show, like with the Tesseract, that made sense to me. So I wonder, what do you guys think? Would this had played well to you if this was a post-credit scene? And do you like the idea that they did scrap this idea? Kind of kicking it off with you, Red.
I wouldn't have minded if this scene had stayed. I'd welcome it. I'd be like, oh, cool, WandaVision tease. But thinking about how we got Endgame in April 2019, and 2020 happened, and now only in January 2021 we're getting WandaVision, it would have been terrible to witness that post-credit scene and have to wait this long. I like that they divided enough where Endgame is just closing off those first 10 years, and now we wait a little bit to, I guess, detox, not by choice, and now WandaVision is just opening this multiverse madness that we're going to see all throughout Phase 4.
Definitely. What about you, Griff? Would you have liked to have seen that scene, or are you okay with it kind of being the scrap plan? Who knows? It might bring it back in the show some way, somehow, like a flashback of some sorts.
No, because I like the fact that Endgame didn't have any post-credit scenes. I thought that was just that was a finite ending to a certain chapter in the MCU, and then you had Far From Home as the epilogue. So I didn't need any post-credit scene there. I think it is interesting that they bring that up, and I think there's a way that they can incorporate that into this series.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at it two ways. One, like that she's sort of like hanging on to Vision because she's afraid to let him go. But two, obviously she's learned how to manifest babies using magic. So maybe she's figured out a way to bring Vision back using magic, and then that's what is also sort of contributing to this whole reality thing. But yeah, no, it does sort of like make you think about what's sort of going on in this series. But outside of that, yeah, this doesn't need to be in Endgame or whatever. It's just an interesting little tidbit.
What about you, Chris? Would you have liked that scene, or to kind of spin it like Griff was just saying, maybe we do get that scene in a later episode regarding how she manifested Vision and who Vision really is. What's your thoughts on this post-credit scene being scrapped and maybe coming back on the show?
Yeah, as much as I'm a super freaking fan of every end credit scene they've ever done, probably I think all of them I love. Like, I wouldn't want to see it for Endgame. It made it, and then it made it even more sad for me, like leaving the theater. I didn't like cry or anything, but I was like, damn, it's really like over for a while. so I think it would have been like, I think it's everything that they design is awesome. So I hope that we get to see it in some form in this show, because I'd like to see how they do it. But I think if bringing it up now is interesting, because then it tells the viewer like, okay, if we did see that, I guess they're trying to tell the audience like, okay, this guy's like dead, like, and she's really concerned about this. Then you can speculate what is she trying to do to like correct this. But it helps us understand WandaVision saying like that can't be Vision, because we just saw him at the end of Endgame in a body bag. So which is also interesting that they would put like essentially a computer in a body bag. But
what about you, Amanda? This idea of the Vision that we're seeing in this show is not the Vision that we know, and also just kind of the idea of them kind of introducing this scene to the show.
Yeah, I agree with everyone here. Endgame ended perfectly. If we would have gotten that post-credit scene, it kind of would have ruined the goodbye that they set up with Endgame, because I was bawling like a baby. So if I would have seen that, I'd be like, what does this mean? Like, why would you be more like right there? And we also have to remember that WandaVision wasn't supposed to be dropped. Sorry, it wasn't supposed to drop first. It was supposed to be dropped. So having that post-credit scene would have been like such an odd thing at the end of like Endgame. It wouldn't have made sense, because we had 2 projects ahead of, 3 if you count Black Widow, but we had 3 projects ahead of WandaVision technically. So yeah, I'm happy the way it worked out for sure.
No doubt. No, for sure. I totally agree with you there. And just kind of switching over back to the recap, Wanda has the water break. We get that funny moment with the water coming into the house. But in particularly with the water break, we get a very interesting transition to a commercial, which includes, taking a bath, and particularly soap. So I did write down, because I rewatched the episode before we went live. I wrote down the reading of the commercial, and it reads that, "Do you need to take a break?" And the person says, "Yeah, you read my mind." Again, Marvel doesn't just throw things in there just randomly. You read my mind. Come with me, escape to a world all of your own, which might play into Wanda, where your problems float away. When you want to get away, don't want to go anywhere, Hydra Soap, find the goddess within. So again, just kind of looking at that commercial that we got and taking it back to episode 1 with the Tony Stark and the trauma there, and the Strucker Watch with Von Strucker. Starting with you, Ren, what's your thoughts on this commercial, man, and Hydra?
It keeps reinforcing my thoughts that Hydra is somewhere involved with this. Maybe they're the ones who made a deal with Mephisto. It's odd, but the thing that really struck me this time was the fact that I finally noticed, it finally clicked on my head that the actors in these commercials are always the same.
Yes.
And so I think they're Wanda's parents, or at least as she remembers them. And she's putting her trauma mixed in with something happy. So the trauma of Tony Stark and the trauma of Hydra and Strucker, who created and gave her powers, and then her parents, who I assume she has to have happy memories with.
That's a great point. I think we even talked about that last week, of the reoccurring actors that they chose to play those roles. I guess the only thing that I mentioned last week was the accents are not there if they're Sokovian, but we all know that Wanda's dropped her accents 3 movies ago. But that would be an interesting theory, especially if she's Americanizing her parents, again, just making this American dream and all that they would lose their accents. But it's really interesting that they do have the same actors. But toss it into you, Amanda, this, again, Hydra Soap, find the goddess within. And again, the lady in the commercial said, "You read my mind," in regards to mind control, the Mind Stone, height, all that stuff. Just your thoughts on that commercial.
If we're going with the parents' storyline, and that is her mother, she's kind of like giving her daughter a warning, technically, that her power's like within her, as you said. So I think it's kind of the clue that like each commercial is giving Wanda a clue of what's happening within her own mind, within her own body. And I do think that eventually, this is like so far like down the road, Wanda's going to be the baddie, to be perfectly honest. I think that there's so much pent up like anger because of her trauma that she's never really dealt with. Like since Age of Ultron, she didn't even bring up Pietro. She hasn't really brought him up at all. So like she's been like repressing all of this, and we don't know if she's even spoken about Vision from Endgame. We don't know any of that because there's such a big gap. So I think if it is her mom in here, she's telling her like, look within yourself. You're stronger than this. You can get out of whatever, is constraining you, basically. So
it's a great point, man. And toss it to you, Chris. Just your thoughts on this Hydra Soap commercial, and the idea that it may or may not be her parents involved, and also just the find your goddess within, and just the trauma that we can look into on this commercial break.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was a dope point that Ren brought up. I guess I don't even really notice that they were all the same actors. So the parent angle is interesting. I think they're kind of like dreams, like her dreams, like because like dreams never really make sense. But then like they have like these people that are just like familiar to you, but then it's just doing things that are just like abnormal. So I just see it that way. I think the goddess within you is probably the most important line, because it's like it just makes you like realize that you're a badass. Like understand like you are you. So because we're watching like this domesticated Wanda. So I thought that was like the most important line of the commercial, and interesting that they brought Hydra again. So and then there's like that little like Easter egg with the newspaper with the fire hydrant. You guys noticed that one?
Two fire hydrants on Main Street.
Yeah, exactly. Which then tells you like how boring the town is, but at the same time, like this is actually crazy what's going on. So it's like I always reference the duality of like you still got to keep the sitcom going. You still have to have a good show behind this, deeper Marvel show. So again, they hit it, on the head with that one again.
And then tossing it to you, Griff, regarding this this particular commercial, the subtext there, the Easter eggs. Just your thoughts on the commercial that we got there, man, with Hydra.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in the camp that like each of the commercials are sort of like metaphors for her traumas, and it's like slowly the cracks of her fantasy are starting to like make themselves they're starting to appear and they're starting to get bigger. And obviously these are sort of like the, everything that's like caused her pain over the years sort of starting to seep through. But the parent thing is interesting. You could also look like maybe they're also like two of the scientists that experimented on her, or like people working for SWORD or whatever that are kind of trying to seep in or something like that. But if you go along the parent line of that being her mother and saying like, hey, listen, you're more than, what your trauma built you to be. You have your own, you have free will. You can choose to like make your life better instead of trying to run away from it. Like, I think that's a really powerful and beautiful angle to it. And I could see maybe that being something, because it's sort of like the traumas are starting to seep into her reality, but then she's also got, because everything is happening in her head, she also has this memory of her parents like trying to like pull her out of it. And so there's this just like conflicting nature of everything. And I really like that. I agree with Amanda, where I'm like, I would want her to be the villain, the ultimate villain of the series. I just don't think that Marvel would do that. Just because like it seems a little too abstract for them. Then again, but I'm saying that, and then again, this is the show that we've gotten is really abstract. So I feel like they'll probably use like an outside villain force to sort of be like, oh, they're manipulating everything. But I really, 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 really hope that maybe they find a way to make Wanda sort of not necessarily like the villain, but like an antagonist in some sort of way, just because of everything that's happened. And maybe that leads into Doctor Strange 2, and Doctor Strange has to sort of pull her out of it, or Doctor Strange sort of comes in at the end of this season and really helps pull her out of it. I don't know, but
I think that to real quick, just to that point, I think you mentioned the Doctor Strange. That's what I was going to bring up too, and I like the idea of her being a villain, and I think I mentioned this last week too, but like as like terrible as the Phoenix storyline is, like you can kind of see, like I got flashes again of the Phoenix, like this woman is super powerful.
For sure.
She is an X-Men woman, and then shit goes crazy. Now it's an X-Men villain, and then at her core, she's still on the on the right side of history. So like I can see them doing it where it's like we mentioned wrestling, like you flip the heel, and then you come back to the good side. But it's interesting, and it's a risk, and it's stepping out like outside of what Marvel has done in the past. So I think it'd be cool.
And I think we're not too far off from that, because like back to what Amanda brought up, and Griffin, and she could be the villain. If she can create a reality, can she create a universe? Can she open a portal to another universe? And she could be the antagonist or the villain of Doctor Strange 2, because Kevin Feige keeps insisting that this Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2 are one big story. So it might all be leading to the same direction.
You guys are speaking some truth, man. And to the chat, someone, Karen brings up the Hydra soap. And I saw this in the comments. So I didn't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I just couldn't get into it. But apparently Phil Coulson had some soap that was mind controlling. So some Easter eggs there. I don't know if that's to be true, because I know like Marvel doesn't really want to associate themselves with the past stuff with the ABC shows and, Inhumans and all that stuff. But that is an interesting thing that they brought up. And also, too, a theory that I wanted to bring up that someone had mentioned, and I love reading the comments of videos that I make. So on my WandaVision recap, was D Renzo brings up a really interesting theory that I would love to get you guys' thoughts on. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. But essentially, D says, my theory is Wanda took Vision to a Hydra facility to try to fix him. They managed to fix him, but she didn't want to leave him in fear of a Thanos would come and take him and destroy him once again. She mind wiped the facility, very similar to what she did of Age of Ultron. SWORD is trying to break into the complex and save her from doing this. She's afraid of losing her family and her normal life. Agnes, Herb, Dottie are all Hydra agents.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Would love to get your thoughts, starting with you, Amanda. What you think on Mr. D. Rizzo's thoughts on the and I think Griff even said it kind of maybe the parents were working on her and maybe they work for Hydra, but just what's your thoughts on that kind of theory right there?
I mean, any theory makes sense at this point, because there's so much to Pat. I have no idea. That sounds cool. If that happens, I'm all for it. I honestly, I believe it. I can see that happening, especially with the post-credit scene. Him going in the body, but now that we know that, she could have taken him somewhere, so that makes complete sense. So honestly, who knows? But that theory, that's wicked. So I'm happy that was brought up for sure.
What's your thoughts on that theory, Ren? Or go ahead, go.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, like, do we think that she's not in like some like random Midwestern part of the United States, and maybe she's like in Sokovia or something like that? Because that does seem like a likely thing. Like she would bring him back to like somewhere where she like originally came from, and then maybe the Hydra facility working on her and stuff like that. Because I'm trying to piece together like the stuff that we've seen from the trailer of the outside world, and when they sort of start to leave that and like fight off against whatever. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, definitely, because we do get some sense of Westview outside when Geraldine, and we'll get to that, was kicked out. It looks like there is like some type of facilities around there. Obviously, those are swords, kind of their camping station. But yeah, it's very interesting that she would pick Westview, which seems to be a real town, to have all this happen. And so did she visit someone in this town, and that's where she snapped or something of that nature? But Ren, what's your thoughts on that theory, man? Hydra facility and the doctors and all that stuff.
I think the concept of the theory in general really works. There's just a few details that I don't think are all there. I think they could very well, like the people in the town could very well be Hydra agents, but I do think it's actually a real town, because if we're assuming that Wanda is creating this world that is molded by the sitcoms and the shows that she watched growing up, then I believe she was attracted to this little small town that is far away from anything else, from any confusion, any big battles, any big baddies, and she just sought out peace in that town. Yeah. But the thing of her taking Vision's body to Hydra, that seems really interesting and maybe even possible. Or maybe she took the body directly to Mephisto.
We know Agnes. She's a friend in the comics, man. That's going to be very, very interesting to see kind of when that relationship kind of unfolds and the truths behind Agnes really kind of befriending Wanda. But just kind of getting back to the recap, we see Wanda hear some noises in the bedroom. We see the stork come out a little bit later, but Geraldine, we noticed that Geraldine in this episode is very hinted at a lot for not meaning to be there. She doesn't belong there. And it almost seems like Geraldine, when she came in the house, she was kind of investigating the situation, trying to get some intel potentially. She was like, oh, let me go in this room right quick and get some supplies. Oh, let me get a bucket. It's like she was kind of observing the situation to see what's going on. And the stork, I think it's a funny thing, but I think there's more to that stork character. As some people are bringing up, we bring up Mephisto a lot in this video so far. He can, disguise himself as a stork, as, Mr. whatever Agnes' pet bunny was last week. Just seeing what's going on. I don't know. Did you guys take, besides the stork being kind of a funny moment and Geraldine being there to get some intel, what were your kind of thoughts on that whole sequence kind of playing out there, starting with you, Chris?
Yeah, that scene was a lot. I was like visibly stressed watching this unfold and this nonsense of covering your pregnancy with a fruit bowl. But I just thought it was a testament of just creating life out of nothing. So like you were able to create these twins, you were able to create this stork. Maybe your plan is to also create Vision coming back. So I saw it as like, okay, this is a metaphor of like, and then even the freaking butterflies in the thing.
Which Wanda didn't seem to have control over that, which was really interesting. She didn't think that she did that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of like the weird thing of like how like Wanda's like in and out of this consciousness of like what's going on here, and then goes back to like the YouTube comment. I just think I think the residents are real residents. They're just under this trance. I don't think they're agents, especially someone like Herb. We obviously know Agnes has some other agenda, and obviously the Monica. But I think a lot of the regular residents are just that, because either they're just doing an awesome job of keeping the charade up. But yeah, it was the stork thing was interesting.
What about you, Amanda? This metaphor of a stork where babies come from, a little wink, wink, nod, nod, PG moment there. But just again, also, we know Wanda's powers are red, but again, Mephisto's red too. Every time she was trying to get, the stork out of the way, it kept coming back up and wiping the red mist away. But your thoughts on Geraldine stopping by and kind of getting some intel, and your thoughts if there's some subtext with the stork item coming to life?
Well, like Chris said, so much happened in that one scene. So you're just trying to follow everything. And even with the fashion decisions, it was so busy. Everything was so busy. So your eyes like trying to like catch everything that's happening. But even like that mist, that smoke, that was totally not Wanda. I don't feel like it was her just because of the color. It was much darker than what she would give off, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm like reading too much into it, but it was different. But this, like, if we're gonna go with like that route, the stork was like pecking at Monica. Geraldine. So I was like, get out of here! Like, what do you say? I feel like he was trying to like get her that like the hell out of there because she didn't want anything to be given away. But Wanda herself, like, I just love their relationship between Wanda and Geraldine. I thought they like fed off of each other extremely well. And at the end of the day, Geraldine just wants the best for her because she was there throughout the entire thing with the delivery of the children and all that. So just even her coming in at that exact moment, why did she come in? Like, it was just completely random that like, oh, she's about to pop. It's like, I'm going to go by and see what happened, right? So there's something there. And then everything that unfolds afterwards is just like, it blew my mind. It was crazy. But I do think that puff of smoke is not Wanda. And I'm going to go with that.
Hey, kicking into you, Griff. Geraldine coming into the mix, the stork, and also too just symbolizing storks besides the wink, wink, nod, nod of where babies come from, but symbolizing storks, they protect things, they protect family, they protect homes. And again, if we are to assume that is a Mephisto in disguise, get Monica Rambeau the hell out of here because I want the children to arrive. So what's your thoughts on just kind of that sequence there, Griff?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily believe that that's like a Mephisto sort of like coming in there. And as for the smoke thing, I mean, I just sort of took that as her trying to get rid of the stork, but she couldn't. I mean, the whole stork thing I thought was just sort of like, it was another instance of the instability of her mind, basically like sort of collapsing in and of itself. Cause like you had well, especially because she's in such a frantic state of mind right now because she's having the kid. Or getting ready to have the kids. So you had like everything that was going on with like her water breaking and like all that sort of thing going on. And so I think the stork was just another instance of that. And sort of the urgency of the pregnancy, the stork sort of like going over to Monica Rambeau and like getting ready to, do all that stuff. I thought was just like, it was basically her inner like conscious or her, some sort of manifestation of her psyche being like, hey, we got to kind of get through this because, you're about to have kids. Yeah. So that's sort of how I took it. I didn't really think of, an outside force sort of like going in there with like, ulterior motives and stuff like that. But it is interesting to think about. Like obviously, yeah, you can draw comparisons to Mephisto and the devil and stuff with the smoke and all that. But I don't know. I think, at least for me right now, I think that's reading a little too much into it. But then again, the show is all about the details and all that stuff. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
The devils are in the detail, as Johnny said. But Ren, man, your thoughts on that whole sequence of Monica Rambeau coming in at that perfect time, like Chris said, and she doesn't have a home. So what pipes burst in her house? Again, I'm very thinking that she just there to get some intel. But what's your thoughts on the situation, man, with the stork and all that?
I'm actually with Griffin because I think it's just Wanda and she wants to have the babies, but she wants Geraldine to go out because she doesn't want Geraldine to find out that she's pregnant. So the stork shows up, and the very description of the episode, the very premise is Wanda's powers fritz out of control because she's having the babies. So the fact that she can't make the stork go away just leans into that as well. I also think that if it was Mephisto, it wouldn't be trying to hide as it's trying to peck away at Geraldine / Monica, because it's trying to hide away as as she turns around and looks around the house. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
definitely Wanda, and she just can't make it go away because she's canceling herself out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
Hey, only time will tell, and I can't wait to see all the underlying and the subtext and all that. So, just going back, finishing up the recap here, we get the children, Tommy and Billy, which we'll get into a little bit here in regards to the significance of those characters. But I want to just kind of highlight again the doctor. You know, when the babies come, we get Speed first, which again goes back to Speed being the quickest. He comes in first before Tommy. But the doctor leaves and says his goodbyes to Vision. And again, it goes back to him at the beginning saying that, you know, I thought you can't escape a small town. I can't escape, you know, and he goes back to his whole thing with Bermuda and his wife and all that. But just kind of going to a very important scene that I want to kind of bring up to you guys as my dog is making so much noise. Let me pull up something that was brought up to my attention on Twitter last night, and I rewatched this episode. And let me share the screen with you all here. The moment where Herb and Agnes are outside talking, I took a screenshot of it here. Let me see if it pops out. Okay, so there we go. So just kind of reading these, Agnes, as Herb and Agnes are talking, and she says, "What is she doing here?" And you know, we have. Let me cut up. Oh, there's me. Let me share. Where's the other screen here? Here we go. Here. Did you see her go inside as they're talking to each other? And what was the next slide? Herb says she went right in. Agnes, her tummy was. Did Geraldine? And then that's fine. Did you lose power too? And another little moment that we see Agnes say, Ralph looks better in the dark. I'm not complaining. Again, we've heard all these little Easter eggs of maybe Agnes or Agatha is the wife of Mephisto. But I just thought that was really interesting, that conversation they were having regarding why is she here? What is she doing in there with Wanda? Again, this speaks to, and also we know that Herb was trying to say something to Vision. He was trying to say, we're here, and he couldn't get it out. So starting with you, Amanda, your whole thoughts on that whole sequence of Herb trying to say something to Vision.
It was suspicious as hell. It really was. You're watching this like, oh, please tell them, like they have to know type of thing.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Catherine Hahn too, because she knows how to play it off so well, even if someone catches Agnes saying something that she shouldn't have been saying. So again, like she brings the humor to it, but you're still looking at her like that's like mad sus. Like why are you saying things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what are you doing? So that entire interaction was a lot of fun to watch because it was happening at the same time that Wanda was giving birth, I believe. It was just like simultaneously. So Vision was like outside and he went in, and then it was like they cut it that way. And Geraldine was helping too. So again, like it was just so confusing and fast paced in that moment. So you're kind of like piecing everything together best to your ability. But Agnes definitely knows so much more. And I think we're in episode 4. I do think that something's going to come out. Or another character will be brought into the mix, and that's going to kind of like force people to start talking because we only have 9 episodes. So the shoe has to drop eventually. And I do think the 4th episode would be perfect for that.
Chris, man, tossing to you again. That conversation, like Amanda said, was very sus. As they say that she's new to town, she has no family, she has no home. You know, why is she here? What's your thoughts on this conversation? And again, what was Herb trying to say, man, in regards to letting Vision know some truth?
Yeah, that was the most important part of the whole episode, is that scene right there, because of the whole like cliffhanger that he leaves us on, and we're here because we're all like, he was about to snitch on that and blow up the whole operation. And we needed that. Vision needed it. And I guess the biggest thing that we find out in this episode, one of the biggest things, is that Vision is starting to realize like shit's not normal. Like he's starting to like be suspicious and starting to question things. So hopefully they take it there in episode 4 where he gets some more answers and then can start to, move accordingly. But yeah, I don't know what he was trying to say. There's been a lot of crazy theories, including like are they all dead? Like are they all trapped? Like that kind of stuff. So I don't know like what he wanted to say, but I hope that they, really dial into that for next week. But I guess, like I said, the biggest thing is that like Vision is understanding slowly like something's not right, and they know that Monica is an outsider, and just trying to call it out. Like she's not one of us. Yep. And I think she's on the right side of history. She's trying to like help Wanda or like get her out of this or stop
Mhm.
this. So yeah, we'll see.
Kicking it to you, Griff, because you brought it up on the review that we did the other day on the recap. The commercial that we saw a couple months ago, there's a scene where Vision is talking to Agnes, and I think it's the Halloween special. She says, "Are we all dead?" Which brings it again. Are they in hell? Like Chris was just saying. But what's your thoughts on
Yeah.
this mystery that Herb is keeping from Vision?
I mean, I kind of took that sequence as just like him basically saying, "Oh, this isn't real," sort of thing. Like the reality that we're in isn't like it's all made up. It's a fantasy. And then obviously with Agnes trying to say, "No, don't tell him that." Obviously she has like some sort of ulterior motives. I'm assuming again the whole thing with her and Mephisto for sure. Is definitely on the table. But yeah, I mean, Vision is becoming aware of the reality he's in. They know it, but they're not letting him in on it because they fear that if he knows, then he's going to try and pull Wanda out of whatever sort of thing they're trying to do. Which also becomes interesting because if Vision is only like a manifestation of Wanda's own imagination, he's not real, then how is he gaining sentience? How is he becoming self-aware? And so I think that's an interesting thing to sort of entertain. There is the possibility that she was able to bring him back, or at least like that she's able to, like, I don't know, allow him to live within her mind, like separate from her, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, with that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, we know that Monica Rambeau is on the right side and she's ultimately trying to help Wanda, and there's something far more nefarious going on over there. And that was sort of an instance of them being like, hey, don't tell him what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
what about you, Ren? What was your take on that sequence, man, with Herb and the truth?
I actually think that the reason they don't want to tell Vision is because they know he's a part of Wanda's mind, Wanda's subconscious. Again, he's kind of her Jiminy Cricket, so if he knows, she knows. But I also think they're real people, and when they're in their reality, they're sort of under a trance, so they don't realize who they really are. But in this moment, when they're talking over the fence, Wanda's fritzing out. She's worried about having the baby, so she's not focusing on generating this reality perfectly. So I think that's the moment where the control over these people just stops for a bit.
That's a great point. Yeah, the power outage that we see in the episode, and she's so distracted with the child that, that is, she can't focus on the pawns of the chessboard. But that's a really good point there. And then just kind of going back to the episode, we see Wanda brings up her brother for the very first time in a very long time, and she sings a lullaby in Sokovian. And when you translate, if you change your subtitles to Portuguese, it translates to
my language.
It translates to "I'm waiting for you. And the day has come. My heart and this is when she's singing the lullaby to Billy and Tommy. My heart became a home full of light, full of light." So again, and then when she brings up her brother, we see Geraldine says he was killed by Ultron, almost like she broke out of a trance, as we talked about last week. Was she in some type of trance when she met Wanda? Hence the name Geraldine. And Ultron name is brought up, which I think we all are hoping that we get Ultron some way, somehow. Some people were DMing me and texting me like, "Oh, if you look up the cast list, I think the actor's name who's slipping right now, William
James Spader."
Yeah, James Spader's name is on the list of IMDb. His voice is on the. I didn't look it up because I want to be surprised as much as possible. But I have a feeling that Ultron will be making an appearance some way, somehow, whether it's a commercial, it's her past trauma. But as we wrap up the episode, Wanda realizes that Monica Rambeau doesn't belong there. She has a necklace that resembles the sign of sword. We wrap up the episode. She kicks her out of the portal. We see Sword. We assume Sword's coming to pick her up to check in on her. End of episode. So just kind of recapping that back half, starting with you, Amanda. What were your thoughts on, again, the lullaby, realizing her brother's dead, the trauma with that, kicking Geraldine out of the portal and Sword coming in to check on her? Just kind of your thoughts on the ending there.
Yeah, you can see that she repressed that memory. I also, just side note, I hate that Pietro died the way he did.
Me too.
Ultron.
Fastest mental lies gets shots by bullets.
Oh my god! Come on.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I just couldn't stand. But it's so repressed that her saying his name, her accent came back. So she said it with his accent. So I thought, I was like, wait a minute. I know she kind of like hit it, like you didn't really hear it in other films after like she kind of lost it. But her saying that, like especially his name and the way she said it, it was so emotional. Like I got teary-eyed. I'm like, she brought him up. Like, oh my God, what else is gonna happen? And then Monica coming in saying that, I was like, did she just? I lost my mind. I was like, did she just?
That look, did you see again? Elizabeth Olsen is killing it. That look that she gave her when she went like dark again, going to the villain theory, get to those levels. But yeah,
I feel like it's setting up for that because she just gave her like a death stare. She's like, you mentioned him. Like, what do you know of my life and my past life? Like, what do you know? So even then, like, Wanda's very self-aware of the situation. I really do think she's aware of the situation herself. Because every time she comes out of it, there's just something that triggers her. And it's all, again, like I said last week, it's an emotional connection there. But I'm losing my train of thought. But yeah, sorry, with Pietro, it was a moment that I think Wanda needed to kick it back into full gear. Because even when she said, oh yeah, like she had to go, like she said to Vision, like she had to go. Meanwhile, kicks her like completely out of it, like out of the area. So even her face, like I think Elizabeth Olsen is doing an incredible job with
awesome.
reactions. Yeah. It gets so dark. And then she even did like her head tilt. I saw like a couple of images on Twitter, like in the spoilers, like they all compared that she has like this villainous head, not villainous, it's the wrong word, but she just darker. She does the head tilt, like, oh, the badass is coming out, everybody watch out type of thing. So Elizabeth Olsen is killing it. But with Monica, like I'm just blown away by their performances that I'm just excited at this point for episode 4 to see what happens.
Yeah, Tiana Paris, and she was, to me, if we were to have an MVP, I would say to me she was my MVP. I just love her as Monica Rambeau. Can't wait to explore her backstory. Maybe we'll get that in this season, or Captain Marvel too. But Chris, man, tossing it to you again. The lullaby being read, the bringing up her brother, her past trauma, her kicking her out of the portal. Then Monica, and also too, I want to note, I forgot to mention it in my notes here, when Monica was describing that story of her getting that promotion, I almost took it as like that was her telling Wanda subconsciously how SWORD was probably against her going into this portal, but she was able to convince her authorities to let her into the portal because she is, you know, a SWORD agent. She probably has, I don't know if she has her abilities like she has in the comics quite yet, but I almost took that as her like describing the situation in reality of her trying to get in the portal. But just again, your thoughts on this recap of ending the episode, Chris, and just kind of your thoughts and theories on kicking Monica Rambeau out of this portal, man.
Yeah, for sure. The translation, obviously I didn't do that, but when you read it, you know, you end with the light, which is the kind of like obviously the opposite of dark, opposite of the devil, that kind of thing. So I'm always not going to waste the line. I thought that the brother line was obviously critical. The eye stare was like. And I think when you mentioned the promotion, it's kind of like her saying like, "Hey, like trust me, like I'm willing to do this." And then when I saw her get kicked out of the portal, though, which I would imagine that she was sent to try to like rescue, like, "Hey, can you go do this?" and figure it out. She fails and gets kicked out of the thing. But I feel like they didn't approach her like, you know, when the astronauts come home and like we run up and like, "Are you okay?" Like it kind of it looked. I don't know if I have to watch it again, but it didn't look like they were like you were part of it. Like they were kind of like I feel like came like they were like guns drawn, like. They have her surrounded, like they got the spotlight on her. So it's like I don't know if it threw me off because in my head before it was happening, I was like, okay, she got kicked out of the portal. Now she's back at SWORD, where we saw the first episode, the person watching it, that whole team. But the way that they approached it at the end, I thought was interesting because I was like, wait a minute, is she like, you know? But she didn't seem scared when she landed, so I guess it felt familiar that she's just like, damn, like I failed that part.
Something, and to kick it to you, Griffin, but something you just mentioned there, Chris. I can't remember the hand. Was it a white hand or a black hand? The person that was watching the episode. Okay, because I was going to say, what if that was Monica Rambeau taking notes so she can see how to get into the world? But I think that might be what's her name, Dorsey from Thor. She might be taking. Yeah, she might have been taking notes in that. But kicking it to you, Griff. the moment where Wanda snaps out of the trance, she brings up her brother. We see Monica Rambeau getting kicked out of the portal. Again, was it against her? Because we talked about it with the Hank Pym particles, her going into the portal with the little helicopter. Did she go against Sword's authority? Did they send her in there as an agent? Are these Hydra agents that know that she wasn't supposed to be there? There's so much to kind of break down, man. But just your thoughts there.
No, I definitely think she was sent in there for sure. And like talking about them drawing guns on her, I think it was just more of like a response of like, oh, something came out of the portal.
Yeah.
We have no idea what it was.
Right.
At least that's how I took it. I have no doubt that she was sent in there to try and figure out what's happening and see if she could pull her out of the world and stuff like that. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking. But I think like with Wanda pushing her out, it's showing that she's like she doesn't want to leave this sort of fantasy that she's constructed because of what the real world sort of has done to her. So like like just seeing the lengths she'll go to in order to keep up this fantasy is really it's interesting. And so everything's going to sort of come to a head, and I think the larger MCU is ultimately going to come, knocking on her door and force her hand in that regard. I think even what's her name? Like Elizabeth Olsen like said in an interview that she's like Wanda's sort of like this mama bear who doesn't want to let go of what she has right now, and so obviously it's like she has everything that she's wanted. So when outside forces are trying to like force her hand, she's going to get backed into a corner, and she's obviously going to like retaliate in a violent way. And so obviously playing more into not necessarily her being a villain, but like her keeping her own self-interest in mind and showing like a darker side of like who she is. So I'll be curious to see where it sort of goes from there, because I think obviously with her going through the decades of the different sitcoms, it's like when there's a disruption in one time period, she moves to the next one in order to escape what's going on. And then when there's a disruption there, she moves forward to the next one. And then ultimately it's going to come up to like present day, and she's going to have nowhere to run because everything is sort of gone that way. So, yeah.
And we talked about that last week too. I think with her doing those decade switches, it's like literally tearing the fabric of reality in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and explains Doctor Strange and putting all the pieces together. But Ren, man, kick it into you on Monica Rambeau. And someone actually brought it in the chat about her powers. I don't know. I don't think Monica has her powers quite yet. I think that's going to be left to Captain Marvel 2, which actually in the comics, I know there's a run where her and Doctor Strange fight like Dracula at one point. So like there's a lot of ties to Monica Rambeau and Scarlet Witch. But just your thoughts on the finale with Sword approaching the situation and just kind of how the episode ended. Just your overall thoughts on that ending, man.
From the moment not Pietro's name is mentioned, and then Monica Rambeau asks that he was killed by Ultron, that's my favorite section of the episode. Like it suddenly turns into a very tense and intense thriller with the interrogation and all. And there's a lot of focus on that necklace that has a sword symbol on it, which I think it's kind of works like the top in Inception, and you take an object with you into that reality to have a grasp of what is really going on. So when we focus a lot on that necklace as Wanda was interrogating Monica, I sort of took it as she's holding that necklace because she just woke up from the trance and is realizing what she's actually doing there. I agree with you, Elliot. I hadn't thought about the job interview and the promotion. I think it's also Monica's subconscious telling Wanda what she's actually doing there. And I actually think somehow her investigation of this triggered her waking up due to the word of Pietro, because if she's going undercover to investigate this person, she read their whole backstory. She got all the information. She knew her brother. She knew what happened to her brother and all that. So I think the word Pietro triggered her awakening in that moment. And I think somehow Wanda is going to inadvertently give her powers in this show. So I think we're going to see Monica Rambeau getting powers in WandaVision.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I don't know why this popped in my head when we were talking about those people in Westview. and this is just the theory that they're in hell. What if these people were the people that were killed in Civil War, that Wanda was responsible for killing in Civil War in some way, somehow? Again, I know they were in, it was like, I think they were in Wakanda or somewhere.
Lagos, Nigeria.
Lagos, yeah. I was just wondering if that was something that kind of comes back up to Wanda. And she, like, subconsciously, she has them in their mind because she killed them and she feels bad for them. So she's kind of bringing them back to life in a way. I don't know.
Possibly.
Marvel. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
read
interesting.
that.
I feel like there would be a lot more people, but I also don't feel you're entirely wrong. If that is the case, that could very well be it.
Hey, man, this is the beauty of this show. Not only is the story fun, it's energetic, it's beautiful to look at. There's so many Easter eggs and theories. You can go in a rabbit hole and lock yourself in a room for hours thinking about all this stuff. And that's the beauty of Marvel. 23 films later, 11 years into the MCU. This is what it does to you. It makes you go crazy and think of all these insane theories. But before we wrap up the recap, I definitely don't want to leave out the fact that we have some Young Avengers making their way into the MCU. And I just want to kind of wrap up this conversation with the recap with, starting with you, Chris, man. We got Tommy and Billy, a.k.a. Wicked and Speed, man. And that really kind of opens the door for the Young Avengers. So my question for the panel with you, Chris, are you excited for Tommy and Speed making their way into the MCU, man?
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about it because I don't know the real backstory about, their whole origin story. I was able to watch some,
it's a lot. It's
very and I was hearing about like the whole LGBTQ angle there for
Wicked,
one of the for Wicked. So that's dope.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just excited to see like the next generation of of Avengers. And I know there's a lot of debate on like, can they carry the franchise without the big names, the Thors and the Captain Americas and stuff like that? But only time will tell, and you have to kind of move on. And it's cool that Marvel is bringing these other stories in because the Marvel universe is freaking huge. It's almost infinite. So you can't just be like relying on the good old Captain America. These guys here, like the regular standard dudes. Like it's interesting, and I trust where they're taking it. So I'm hoping to see like how much they age in this show.
Yeah.
To then see where it ends up at the end of the season, but excited to learn about it.
The future is bright, man. Kicking it to you, Amanda. Again, I have it at the bottom here. So for those that aren't too familiar with Young Avengers, I mean, we're having American Chavez come up and Doctor Strange 2. We have Ironheart, her TV show, Casey Lane, A Stature, Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, and we got Miss Marvel and of course Wicked and Speed. So, Amanda, are you excited for this new phase of Marvel with the Young Avengers, with now Wicked and Speed being in the mix?
Yeah, definitely. I think the more characters we're introduced to, it'll just give more context for other projects as well. If you bring everything together, like Chris said, I don't know much of the backstory, but I'm excited to learn in regards to all of them about the Young Avengers. I do think that if they do a Young Avengers film eventually, that it should be on Disney Plus and not on the big screen, because other than America Chavez, you're setting them all up on Disney Plus in the series. So I think that if you made a film, it would kind of feel disjointed in a way. But yeah, I'm excited.
I think, and I actually mentioned this in my review, I think that's the route they're going to take. I can see Young Avengers having a TV show, like a culmination of like a big event, like we're expecting with the Star Wars episodes, with Mando and all the different shows. I think Young Avengers is going to be like the Netflix Defenders. They're going to get their own show on Netflix versus a movie. But kicking it to you, Ren, regarding the Young Avengers, and I guess too, just for the audience at home, not to get into detail because Wicked and Speed, their backstory is crazy, dating all the way back to like 1986 with Wanda creating them and not knowing that Mephisto was involved, them having to destroy Mephisto and his fragments, the kids being absorbed with him, but then they're reincarnated in the Young Avengers. It's a complex story. Definitely read it up on it. You're going to be just as mind blown as as a lot of us were. But just your thoughts, Ren, on the Young Avengers, and do you see Marvel having them go on the big screen or sticking to the TV screen with Young Avengers TV show?
I actually think for a while you're going to stick around Disney Plus and the TV shows because that's where most of them are being introduced.
Right.
And in recent years, like when I say recent, in the past decade, the run where I've enjoyed seeing these Young Avengers more, it was a run called Avengers Academy, which was really fun. And I think they're going to do a sort of, not necessarily call it Avengers Academy, but something of that sort as a TV show. And then they're going to get quote unquote promoted to the movies eventually.
Right. No, I'm right there with you. And who's to say, too, that the Young Avengers won't make their way into introducing some of the X-Men, especially when you bring up an Academy standpoint. But shooting it to you, Griff, man, Young Avengers coming into the mix, Wiccan and Speed, their backstory. Again, Mephisto, is it almost too obvious, Griff, that Mephisto is the villain? Is it just too obvious at this point that he's going to be the main villain? But just your thoughts, man.
I mean, I've always assumed that he was going to be involved in some capacity because I mean, even before like we started watching the show, I was like, he'll probably be involved in some capacity in this series, and then he'll probably be the main villain of Doctor Strange 2, and like, you know, Doctor Strange doing like a sort of Dante's Inferno kind of thing. I don't know. That sounds really interesting to me. But in terms of the Young Avengers, like, yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting. The thing about Wiccan and Speed is like they're like brought to life, and then they like they die, right? Like they like immediately die after, when like, you know, everything happens with Wanda and whatnot. And so I'm curious if they do that in this. Like, that'd be a pretty like insane thing to have happen. To have them, and you know, maybe that's part of the plot of Doctor Strange too, is like Wanda and Doctor Strange have to team up and like, you know, battle through like whatever hell in order to get them back or something. Like, I don't know. That's, you know, the ideas like that start popping into mind. But yeah, in terms of like the Young Avengers and like what they're going to do with them, I think, yeah, Disney Plus probably seems like a good option for that. Whether it's a movie, a mini series, you know, so on and so forth. I think either, or like whatever option they decide to take, I think is going to be really interesting, because yeah, you're setting up all of these characters in Disney Plus shows. The future of the MCU is primarily on Disney Plus. So like, yeah, you can have like the regular Avengers on the big screen. You can have the Young Avengers on TV and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be very interesting to see how that plays out.
You said something that we've been mentioning a lot in this episode, and that's Wanda maybe being the big bad of this series, or even Doctor Strange. I think you said something there regarding playing out where, very similar to the comics, she loses her children, and that can be the literal breaking point when Wanda loses her mind, and we go into Doctor Strange of him trying to get things back together. Very similar to the comics, Avengers Disassembled, where Wanda learns about the kids. She actually kills Hawkeye and does a bunch of madness, and that's where we go into the House of M with no more mutants. So Marvel, you're getting me excited. You're getting me very excited for the future of the MCU. And we all know they don't have to go like point by point, comic by comic, but they always do like their own little remixes of stories. And I think we're going to get Avengers Disassembled. We're going to get the House of M all mixed into one, and it's going to be fantastic. Again, this show is budgeted at $250 million. I think by the second half or third half of this show, it's going to get bonkers. And I can't wait till we get to that point. So just any final thoughts before we head into the MCU? I know, Ren, you have to head out in a little bit, man. So I'm going to start with you. Just your general thoughts on this episode, and just if you have any theories or predictions of what you hope to see in next week's episode.
Also, like, just we talked about last week, if there's anything you wanted to see differently or something they could have improved on.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And like Chris said, if there's any like cons that you may have within this episode, definitely add that into the mix. Yep.
It's not a con necessarily so far, at least, but I'm still wondering what Darcy is doing there. Like, of all people, even with the theories there are around what her character is doing there, it feels like she's a little over her pay grade in this. Like, her position, from what we're theorizing that she has in this, feels like it would be more appropriate for a Jane Foster or even a Selvig, let's say. Yeah. So I don't know. That's one still out of the bag. We're not sure what she's doing there, if she's the one in charge of anything at all. But so far, I'm really enjoying this wild, crazy ride. I hope we get more of those final 5 minutes of episode 3 of this being a thriller that builds up the tension and Wanda just goes insane. Because you just brought up the budget of the film of the show that they announced this week. Like, judging from the trailers, I would never have guessed that this was what it is with the budget, or even that it was more expensive than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because that trailer has money spent all over it. So I don't necessarily want anything specific. I'm not one of those people that hopes for anything. I just want it to be good. I just want to be taken on a wild ride, be wacky, be crazy, be inventive, and bringing back up again how this will lead into Doctor Strange 2, and then or Spider-Man 3, and then Doctor Strange 2. Mephisto, man, I'm some way, somehow he's behind this. One More Day is a thing in the comics. I'm sure the deal won't be the same if they do it in the movies, because it just doesn't work. But I can't wait to see it, and I'm sure Marvel won't disappoint. They haven't done that to me so far.
Well said, my friend. Well said. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. If this is a PG show, plus, are they maybe not going to dive into Mephisto, like the devil on a Disney show? I know we've had Hela, we've had Serta, we've had, different darker themes in MCU, but are they really going to mean the devil to the MCU and WandaVision? It makes me a little nervous because it's a Disney show. But
maybe he doesn't show up as the devil.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. And that's where Doctor Strange
also
comes in. Yeah.
Also, there are darker things that have happened in some of the Disney animated films that are rated G.
Very true.
So, you can get away with a decent amount. Also, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is rated PG. I think they can get away with a lot of stuff in a PG rating.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't call him like the devil, it's not a problem.
For sure. Kicking it to you, Griff, man. Your thoughts on episode 3, and if you have any cons with this episode, and of course your predictions for the weeks ahead.
I can't predict anything because I don't. I mean, the nature of the show is unpredictable. But no, yeah. I mean, I love the episode. I've loved every single episode that we've got from the show thus far, and it keeps building intrigue and building great characters, and the performances are excellent. And I think we're inevitably going to explore more of Wanda's grief and trauma more throughout the course of this episode, which is what I'm most interested in seeing. And so, I think this, like I said at the beginning, this is the episode that really opens the doors to everything that's sort of happening outside of this sitcom, along with showing the nature of her reality and stuff. So I really don't have any complaints. I mean, when Elliot, when you and I initially reviewed it, I said it's one of my favorite things Marvel's ever produced, and I still stand by that. It's on a completely other level, and I'm so week to week to just keep spending time with these characters and the story.
100%, man. And shooting it over to you, Amanda. Overall thoughts of the third episode. Any criticisms with this episode? And if you were to pull a hat out of the rabbit, what do you think we can expect to see in episode 4?
Like Griff said, I have no idea. These predictions change every 5 minutes because someone drops another theory, and you're like, oh, maybe that's where it's going to go. You have no idea. But yeah, like Ren said, I just want to be a part of this wild ride for these 9 episodes. So anything can happen. I'll probably be extremely happy with it. And like I said last week, I went into WandaVision not really caring what was going to happen, right? But then I fell in love with it. So whatever they give me, I'm going to be happy with pretty much. So
No doubt. Hey, Chris, man. Criticisms, overall thoughts of this episode, and again, just putting on that tinfoil hat. Any predictions for next week, man?
I don't have a prediction. I can't do that. I think I need to rewatch the trailer to see what I know that there's a Halloween thing and all that kind of stuff. So maybe we go there. But one thing I would say is if they can really keep up this same level of energy, we kind of agreed a lot. I think a lot of us liked the second episode more than the first, and obviously the consensus seems to be third is better than 2 and 1. But if they can continue to build on each one up to 9, that'll be insanely effective. That's when I said I predicted it last week. This is all a weird little ride, and we're all trying to be Sherlock Holmes figuring all this shit out. But I think potentially this could be the best show out of the 3 that we're gonna get in the immediate low key Falcon and this show. So because of all the risks, it's I don't understand how they can come up with this kind of stuff. It's really genius. I don't see the other shows being this meta and just so introspective.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to them building, because like I said, if they can keep that same energy and because in 2021, it's very few shows that we're waiting a week for. It's very few. And this is one that I'm literally waiting now. I'm excited to what's gonna come on Friday. Like growing up watching TGIF, like you have to wait a week. You know, so I'm excited what they've done. My criticism, it's brief. I think there's so many cheesy moments in the show as designed, but I just wish they were less cheesy. Like they can be like funny cheesy. Like a funny line from this week was with the power goes. It's like the other fat in these earrings. Power goes out. He's like, thank God. Like that right there. I was like, oh wow, that's really good. That's really good. So like I want to see more. Say it again.
The papaya joke was funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then because then it's like you have to do it on purpose too. Like there's cheesy like that's like designed to be cheesy because and that's kind of like I go back to the Brady Bunch movie. A lot of that was like, okay, this is obviously corny, but it's like it worked. So I want to see them. I want to see where it goes as far as like the sitcom writing to see where that levels up. But overall, like I said, excited to see what we get as the weeks go on. And it's even I appreciate the show even more because I get to come on the show and talk about it with you guys. So
awesome,
it's cool.
Hey, like you guys have all said, just my overall thoughts. This is my favorite episode of the 3 thus far. I thought, again, if this was the first act, it was a great way to end the act, to open up the door for Monica Rambeau and Sword and all the stuff in the greater universe. If I were to have any criticism, it's not really my criticism, but I just curious. You brought up earlier, Amanda. I'm just curious on the non-Marvel like fans. If they're looking at this show, I'm just trying to take myself out of Marvel. Is it a show that's just thriving on Easter eggs, or are they actually enjoying the story? Because again, if they're just taking it for face value, I don't know if someone's really enjoying the sitcom and the tongue-in-cheek nature of it versus us as Marvel fans. We can appreciate it because we know Wanda and Vision, we know where they come from, we know their backstories, we know the Easter eggs and all that stuff. But I'm just so curious on the average fan, their enjoyment level. Is it just like, oh, what's the Easter egg this week versus like, what's the plot? What's the story? Where are we going? So I'm just, and again, that's not my thoughts. I'm just thinking of like outside of the MCU, if people feel that way regarding the show. But me, I'm loving it so far. And as far as like theories next week's go, I'm thinking we're going to probably, it would be nice if we picked up literally after Geraldine or Monica Rambeau gets kicked out and we finally get an outside perspective of what's going on. And we get, and I think you mentioned it, Griff, we get like Monica Rambeau at Sword, diving into the nitty gritty of what's going on. I would like to get that perspective, and then obviously cut in between what's going on with Wanda and Vision. I think we've seen it in the trailers, and I think they're going to play into the 80s. They're going to have the kids, and it's going to be like the 80s with Agnes wearing the jumpsuits and all that stuff. So I think I hope that we cut in between the outside world and Wanda and Vision and Westview. That would be pretty neat to see. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of this episode, and I can't wait to talk about episode 4. So we're going to transition into the MCU news. But Ren, again, I know you're short on time. Just want to know you're going to head out, or if you want to talk a couple of these news.
Yeah, unfortunately, I really do have to head out. I wish I could stay, though. Maybe next Saturday or any other time you guys want me back.
No doubt. With that being said, Red, man, if you want to let the people, again, thank you so much for coming on, man. Definitely want to have you back on and talk more about this show and other things about the MCU. But if you want to let the people know where they can find you and if there's something coming up on your channel that we should look forward to in the coming days.
Yeah. Thank you again. Hope. No worries. Love talking MCU with you guys. You guys can find me at Ran Geekness on Twitter and YouTube, Ran Vieira 93 on Instagram. I have a theory video coming out for WandaVision discussing a lot of what we discussed here today, and kind of ranking what is likely, what isn't likely. That's coming out probably tomorrow, and very soon reviews for Netflix's The Dig and The Mauritanian, which are coming out very soon as well.
Awesome. Can't wait to check out those videos, Ren. Again, man, it was a pleasure having you on the panel. Can't wait to see that theory video and see all the theories you have, man. And again, I would love to have you on again, my friend. And we can't wait to have you back.
I'll happily be on, man. Thank you very much, everyone.
Take care, Ren.
All right. Bye-bye.
Peace, Ren.
All right, guys. So again, do us a favor and check him out on his Instagram, on his YouTube channel, all that great stuff. He's a fantastic geek. He's a fantastic guy. He has a great opinion on movies and shows, so definitely show him some support. So just switching gears over to, we don't have a lot of news to go over this week, but I just want to kind of kick off some things, especially kind of coming off of the Young Avengers and all that stuff. I just curious for you guys, since we're jumping into the news recap, starting with you, Amanda. Is there like a project wise that gets you excited? Because we, in the last 24 hours, we've gotten news that Morbius has gotten delayed. A lot of the other films are getting delayed. A lot of people are speculating that, and I know Griff, this hurts your heart, man. No Time to Die got delayed to October. And then they're thinking about, pushing back Black Widow. But with that being said, the stuff that we do have with Marvel, and particularly with the shows and some of the movies, is there a top 3? And also everyone in the chat, definitely join in and let us know your top 3 2021 MCU projects that are still slated to come out. What's your top 3? Starting with you, Amanda, if you want to go 1 through 3 or 3 through 1 on your project there.
Sure. I don't really have an order. Actually, I do, because like the Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's like number 1 priority at this point. I'm really excited for it. They just announced that they cast the Patriot in the series. Like I guess they announced it that he was gonna come in. Like I know that he probably filmed, obviously, because the show's done. But like as of recent, they like released it again, the news, for some strange reason. So that got me hyped again. Basically, I forgot, and then they announced it again. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's going to be great. So I'm excited for that. I have my Funko Pops coming in hopefully on Tuesday. So I'm excited for that too. But I love them. And I want to know more about Sam Wilson. And I want to know more about Bucky, because it's always been like supporting characters. And now that they're together in their own show, I think that we're going to like love them even more, because honestly, Mackie and Sebastian have like brilliant chemistry. They're so strong. And given the trailer, like there's going to be so much banter, so and so much depth to their characters. So I'm excited for that one. I'm so stoked for Spider-Man 3. Please, God, do not move it. Do not move it.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Do not move Spider-Man 3. But also, I think if WandaVision's tied into Spider-Man 3, they kind of can't move it. If that makes sense too.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for
Which
that.
one is Multiverse of Madness coming out before Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 3 before?
It's after.
Yeah.
So I if they move that, then the ending of the season for WandaVision isn't going to be that. Oh my God! Hello, Kat.
I know. I'm so sorry. She's the worst. She's the worst.
Special guest, man. We got to bring in everybody.
Take over for Rim.
Yeah. Right.
But I think the ending of WandaVision isn't going to be like Mephisto, kind of. I don't think he'll come in. If they move Spider-Man 3, then it won't be that grand of a finale, I think. And if they keep Spider-Man 3 where the time slot is, then maybe it's going to be something bigger. So I think it varies that way. And the third one, I'm excited for Loki. That trailer, I wasn't excited before that trailer. I was just like, yeah, I'm all in. I love Tom Hiddleston. It's going to be great. So.
And to your point, Amanda, going back to just the timelines before everything kind of got pushed back, I think it was always going to be that Spider-Man was going to come out before Doctor Strange, as it be. But as of right now, Spider-Man 3 is slated for December 17th, and Doctor Strange is slated for March 25th of 2022. So we're only getting like 2 months before we get it. So I think in a perfect world, they would love WandaVision to go into Spider-Man and then go into Doctor Strange to kind of cap off this multiverse situation. So we'll see. Because another thing too, it's set in Christmas, as they announced. Well, not announced, but there's set photos showing Tom Holland and snow. So, and I don't even know. Like, I think the original Spider-Man date was like a summer date. So I don't. Again, you can have a Christmas story in the summer, but I wondered if they rewrite that into the script to have it be in Christmas. And obviously, people are going with the title Spider-Man Home for the Holidays or whatever the case may be, but we'll see with all that. But all these titles out there is just hilarious. But shooting over to you, Griff, man, as far as if the stars were to align perfectly, what are your top 3 projects that you're looking forward to with Marvel?
Probably, I mean, WandaVision would have been them for sure. It would have been number 1 on that list, but now that we've gotten it, probably Hawkeye, Loki, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I know I'm insane for not saying Spider-Man, but just like I have so many, like, I'm very hesitant about a lot of the announcements that have sort of come out about that film, and I'm like, this could either be a disaster or it could be really good. So I don't know. We'll see about that one. But like for right now, like that Loki trailer, I was not
Oh, that's
I
great.
was this is stupid. Like I don't want to see this at all. And then that trailer completely won me over, did a complete 180 on that. Hawkeye, like obviously I think Hawkeye is one of the most underused characters in the MCU thus far, and seeing what they've been able to do with Wanda and Vision, who are also very underused, seeing that approach and like seeing what they could do with Hawkeye, I think is going to be great. Also, it's based off of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, which is one of my favorite comics of all time. Like it's just so good. So I hope they kind of play into that. And obviously Haley Steinfeld is Kate Bishop. I'm really looking forward to seeing her. And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think I'm just like really excited to see that because I love those two characters. I love that it's probably going to tap into probably some more of the politics of what's going on right now, and I think there's a lot that they can sort of do. Obviously, with Captain America not being there and seeing like is Sam Wilson going to sort of take up that mantle, or Bucky or something like that. I think they're really positioning Sam though to be the next Captain America. So. I mean, those are probably my three most anticipated, but like I'm looking forward to all of the content that's coming out. I mean, even stuff like What If, I think is like such an interesting idea that's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, it's a lot of content to look forward to, and hopefully these release dates for the films. We know the Disney Plus shows are probably going to stick their release dates, but hopefully these films do as well. So, Chris, you man, what's your top three most anticipated for this year for MCU projects?
Yeah, so I'll go in order. Number one, Spider-Man, of course. Like, obviously, Griffin. Hello.
I mean, I get it. Like, look, it's gonna be cool. If we get to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back, absolutely. Like, it'll be fun. I'm just worried that it's gonna take away from Tom Holland and his story. So
yeah, my question is too. Like, and I don't want to sound ungrateful, but how is it already here? Like, so many movies have been pushed. Like, Batman is getting pushed to like next decade. Like. Black Widow is coming out on like Quibi. Like, I don't understand how they were able to keep this date or like to have like you're the last movie and also the next movie. I just don't get it. But
I don't know.
He brings in the people. He makes that money, and that's
hopefully, yeah. I mean, I trust it. If it's all those people, it'll be a lot. Maybe it'll be like 4 hours, but it'll be great. That's my number one.
The John Watts cut.
Yeah. No, I talked about it last week. I'm a real nerd for Loki, so Loki is going to be my number two. I'm looking forward to that. I'm a Vision nerd and I'm a Loki nerd. Those are like my oh my god, like underrated Marvel fan. Like I love those two. So that's really cool. And then number three, I want to learn about the Eternals. I want to see how that looks. I want to see what comes from that. The story sounds interesting. I don't know anything about it in like the comic book realm, but I'm excited to see what that looks like. The cast looks crazy, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. So that'll be my top three.
No doubt, man. And a couple people in the chat. Yeah, Spider-Man. Jay Minley, and this is the conversation we had a little bit before we headed off with WandaVision. Like, geared towards Marvel fans. I have to research the Easter eggs, and again, it's a gift and a curse with Marvel at this point. It's like you're either on the train or you're trying to catch up to the train, and when you do, you can appreciate the things. But I can only imagine like not being like so stuck into the world like I am. Like I wonder if I would be confused what's going on.
I actually think that WandaVision is a great series for both sides of the spectrum, like the casual viewers and the people who are hardcore, because it's like you get more out of it if you're like a hardcore fan. But I also think like it's a really fun and interesting story to watch if you're just like a casual. Like my parents, for instance, are like casual fans, and they've seen all the movies, but they don't really like dig deep into everything. But they're loving WandaVision. They're just like really interested to see where it goes. Same with like a couple of other friends that I have who just watch the films and they're like, oh, this is cool, this is interesting. So I think there's like that's why I think that show is such a great launch point for phase 4, because it's like it feels like a brand new opening to this next book. And it's like you can have the baggage from the Infinity Saga for sure, but like even if you don't, you can still enjoy what's going on in the show right now.
And I love to your point, Griffin, that as soon as the episode ended for episode 3, they brought up recommendation Age of Ultron to watch that.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's stuff like
great.
Well, and that's the great thing about having everything on Disney Plus is if you're like, oh, I don't remember that, I need to watch that. Well, you can go literally on their platform and watch the movie that maybe you should watch afterwards. So
It's almost like comics, right? You read a comic and
Oh,
you're at a
yeah.
comic store and it's like, oh, let me pick up this next run to see what the next chapter's like. So it's
Yeah.
a crazy thing, man, growing up as a comic fan and seeing all this stuff come to life, man. But Eric's list here. WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, Doctor Strange 2, definitely some stuff to look forward to. So as far as my list goes, very kind of similar to you all, but I'm gonna throw in a little wild card. And that wild card is Shang-Chi. I am a kung fu karate fan at heart growing up with Bruce Lee and watching all those films and just loving stuff with just stuff that we're getting in recent days, like I don't know, the Raid 2, and just all the different stuff. I just love a good hand-to-hand combat, bringing it back to Winter Soldier when we see people fighting instead of using their powers. See hand-to-hand combat's gonna get me excited, but also just the idea that the 10 rings are coming back, and we haven't seen the 10 rings since Iron Man 1. We have the real Mandarin coming to the mix, which makes me think that there's going to be some Iron Man ties to Shang-Chi, whether that be Pepper or Rhodey, or I don't think Obadiah might have died in Iron Man 1. And of course, Justin Hammer's still out there. So I think there's going to be some Iron Man ties with Shang-Chi, but I'm also just excited to see this Mortal Kombat tournament style that they're approaching or that they're talking about. Aquafina and the cast. It's incredible. I'm really excited for that film, and I hope it sticks its release date next year. So that's my number 3. Number 2 for me is I got to go with Spider-Man 3. Again, it's so much going on, and I am to assume that they gave John Watts the keys to Fantastic Four because he was able to handle himself. Even though I know they announced they weren't shooting Spider-Man 3 when they made the announcement, but I think that they have a lot of faith in John Watts, and I'm excited to see what he does. You know, he's kind of like the solo Russo brother. They're giving him a lot on his plate with this Spider-Man 3 film, and then going into Fantastic Four. I think, and I know Griff, it hurts your heart that Peyton Reed wasn't able to tell his story, and who knows?
I don't even want Peyton Reed, man. I'm just like, give me someone way more interesting with a creative vision than John Watts. It's like, what a
I'm
really bad.
I'm hoping he's gonna put his stamp on Spider-Man 3 because I'm kind of like, I like the Spider-Man 1 and Far From Home and all that stuff, but I haven't seen like, oh, that's a John Watts film. I haven't seen that quite yet. I saw his first film, which was Clown. I saw that like years ago when a dad becomes a clown and can't take off the makeup, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. But I've yet to see like, oh, that's a John Watt type of thing, and I'm hoping that we get that in Spider-Man 3, and we can see that maybe in Fantastic Four. But Spider-Man 3, man, what else? Like Chris said, Alfred Molina coming back, Jamie Foxx is a new Electro, these alternate version of these characters, Daredevil, the Spider-Men, Gwen Stacy. I mean, enough. What else can't be said about this film? I'm really excited. And I think the only thing that, like you said, Griff, that makes me nervous is like, what's Tom Holland's story? With all these characters, how are we going to, continue the continuation of Far From Home? I am to assume that they're going to do what they did with Captain America and Civil War. All these Avengers in the mix, but it's still Cap's story. So I'm hoping that's the case with Spider-Man 3 is still Tom Holland's story, even though we have all these array of characters get into the mix. So that's my number 2. And number 1 for me is Falcon and Winter Soldier. I am so excited for that show because, like you said, Amanda, Bucky, and Sam, 2 great characters, background characters that really haven't gotten that much from them. Regarding the acting's been great. I'm just referring to like their storylines and them being prominent figures in the MCU. So excited for that aspect, and I'm really excited to see Marvel tackle again, like we talked about WandaVision, how women were treated in the 50s and 60s, and talking about that dynamic of men and women and the men in the household. And diving into Falcon and Winter Soldier, the race aspect of, not to get too political in the show, but yes, there will be some rift with people not agreeing that there's a black Captain America. And I think they've already confirmed that they're going to bring in, I can't think of his last name, I think it's Bradley something, but in the comics, the first Captain America was a black man, and in the MCU, that's never brought up. Very similar to American history. There's stuff that we don't learn about in history classes that they try to push under the rug. So I'm really excited to see them explore that aspect. Baron Zemo coming back, setting the stage for Phase 4. I'm really looking forward to that. So that's my number 1. And we're literally less than 2 months away from Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I'm really excited to see what they got for us in that show. And man, I can't wait. Anthony Mackie and Stan are great together.
I also just want to say, I know it's like kind of like, and to just sort of like laugh at Black Widow's misfortune and everything, but I'm honestly very excited for that film.
Same.
I mean, I'm a massive like spy movie fan, and like just seeing the trailers and like some of the footage that's come out for that film, I'm like, yeah, this seems really cool. And like, yeah, I guess people could look at it as like, oh, they're going back in time instead of going forward in time, but I have a feeling like stuff will tie into the future. Yeah. And I'm just really excited for Black Widow to finally get her own film. It's been like long overdue. So I don't know. I get it. I get it's hilarious and whatever, but like also I'm really excited for it.
But that's also if they don't move it again, because I have a feeling they're going to, because they're not going to drop it on Disney Plus. They won't do it.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
What is the current date now? Like, what do they have it for now?
May 7th.
yeah. So
Yeah, I mean it'll get moved, but like I think it'll probably just get moved to later this year, like probably October or something like that, or September maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean I agree. I think it'll definitely get moved again.
yeah.
It is unfortunate, but like you said, Griff, I just want to see this film so bad. And it was supposed to be the launching pad for the Phase 4, and obviously introducing Florence Pugh as probably the next Black Widow, and all that stuff that's coming out of that, and General Ross and all that stuff. But I don't know. Hopefully we'll get the film. Hopefully, because Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow and what happened in Budapest is apparently going to be a thing too. So I'm really looking forward to when that film comes out. So I know, Griff, this is going to get you excited because I know this is one of your favorite franchises. Most recently, Mr. Michael Douglas on his Instagram said that he has to grow the goatee because he's going to be shooting Ant-Man and the Wasp in the Quantumania this year, and they're hoping that it comes out next year. So I want to start with you, Griff, because I know you're a big Ant-Man fan, man. Just your general thoughts and excitement level for Ant-Man 3, and what's your expectations for Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors, and the importance of Quantum Realm? We're almost like, I don't want to say we forgot about the Quantum Realm, but we're talking about multiverse so much, but the Quantum Realm is a pretty big thing in the Marvel comics. So just your thoughts on getting Ant-Man next year.
I think it'll all sort of like tie in together at some point. I mean, I hope we get Ant-Man next year. I'm not like, holding my breath that that's going to be the case, but like, I mean, look, I'm just excited for it. Like, I want them to get weird and go into like the just wacky stuff about the Ant-Man comics and whatnot, and just really continue the pattern of the films just being like really enjoyable family films, and not like family films, but like movies that focus on like family. Because right now we don't have the Fantastic Four, and I think the Ant-Man films are the closest that we've gotten to the Fantastic Four movies, and just sort of like continuing to explore that dynamic. Hank Pym's like, past and how it's affecting his future, and now we've got Michelle Pfeiffer properly in the mix, and so let's see what she can sort of do as Janet. And obviously with like the aftermath of Endgame, how is that going to affect these characters specifically? Because I think there's a lot that they can sort of explore there. And then as for Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, I mean, like, sign me the hell up, because I'm really excited for that. I love Jonathan Majors as an actor, and like getting to see him play what I'm assuming is going to be the main villain of this film is going to be really, really interesting. And I also think that this is going to open the door for the Fantastic Four. Like, this will probably be the first film that hints at the existence of them. Just given, Reed Richards and Hank Pym's sort of like history in the comics, I think that this would probably be an appropriate place to do that. So I am all in on this, and I'm just like so excited that we're going to have an Ant-Man trilogy, because I love these movies so much.
Yeah, that is so interesting you said that regarding again talking about Fantastic Four. I think this is like Marvel's way of saying, we know that you had a script for Fantastic Four, Peyton, so we're going to let you at least introduce the Fantastic Four in your film. Just just a little tease for you, and who's he might direct the sequel or whatnot. But yeah, Kang the Conqueror being in the mix. Jonathan Majors, fantastic actor. Lovecraft Country was one of my favorite shows last year. And just knowing that, I'm excited for Ant-Man 3 for the fact that I think for the first time, and this is my opinion, I feel like whenever they drop the first two Ant-Mans, they're just like little appetizers before Avengers, and then, or what was it before? It was after Age of Ultron, if I'm not mistaken, or before, one or the other. And then the second one came out like right around after Infinity War. So I'm glad it is kind of, I just want an Ant-Man movie just to be on its own and not worry about connecting to the Quantum Realm, being in Infinity War and Endgame and all that stuff tied into the greater universe. I'm just really excited for Ant-Man to get his story. I think, Stature is going to come into the mix with Casey Lane. So I'm really looking forward to what we get with that one. But shooting it over to you, Amanda, your general thoughts. I don't know, are you a fan of the Ant-Man franchise? And just your thoughts on this Ant-Man 3 announcement.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I remember when Age of Ultron came out, and I wasn't a fan whatsoever. And like you said, Ant-Man was the next one. So I remember like everyone on Twitter, we're gonna boycott Ant-Man because Age of Ultron was so bad. And I'm like, you guys are missing out because Peyton, like even the trailers, like Peyton Reed, oh my God, the direction, everything that he played around with, it was just amazing. So like I hyped Ant-Man by myself because people were gonna boycott it. I'm like, these are wrong. Okay, so I'm so excited. And I do think that Ant-Man is going to have the best trilogy in the MCU because Peyton, yeah, I'm calling it because Peyton Reed direction is, keep your mouths open and stop. I am serious. Peyton Reed's direction has been so consistent. The writing has been so consistent. And like, I'm a huge fan of Captain America. You guys know this. But Civil War is the third installment was not the right decision.
Yes.
Wow. I want to end this conversation, Amanda. I want to have.
She's right. She's so right. Yes.
It wasn't a Cap story. It wasn't. I know it's masked as an Avengers film because Age of Ultron was terrible. So they're like, let's do Avengers 2.0 with Civil War because that wasn't the original title either. So yeah. So I really do think that Ant-Man's going to have the most consistent trilogy. Jonathan Majors is going to kick some major ass. I'm so excited for him. And I love Ant-Man so much. God bless Paul Rudd for being an amazing person.
Yeah, for real.
I'm going to put it on my calendar now. I want to pin this conversation for another day. Ant-Man 3 or Ant-Man having a better trilogy than Cap and Griff, you're going to be on that panel too, man. Because
dude,
I love it.
She's so right. Just because of the consistency across all three films, because of how intimate the stories are, they're not worried about connecting the larger universe. They've always been like their own thing, focused on the characters first. And I feel like with the Cap films, the first two movies are exceptional, two of the best films in the MCU. But that third one, man, it can't decide whether it wants to be Cap 3 or Avengers 2.5. And that's where it really kind of crumbles for me. It should have been Cap 3, then Civil War. And that's
I'll just say this: the first Cap was evolved around a war, and the third Cap was evolved around a war. And it was still an intimate story because our last battle was Bucky versus Cap versus Iron Man, and not versus the Winter Soldiers. So, oh man, I would love to have that conversation with you too. But definitely respect it though. But Chris, man, I don't know if you have another hot take like Amanda there with Ant-Man being potentially maybe the best trilogy in the MCU. Who knows? But what's your thoughts on just general thoughts on Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man Wasp, Ant-Man 2, and your excitement level for Ant-Man in the Quantumania?
Yeah, that was a hot take. I have to.
Just the water, man. Almost like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and also it's not even out yet. Like that's a lot. That's a lot to say. Just to be clear, like my excitement level for all Marvel things is up. Like there's nothing that's coming out that I don't care about. So that's one. But I treat Ant-Man 1 like I treated Guardians of the Galaxy. Didn't know what to expect. Didn't expect it to be good, and then fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, Paul Rudd is, I'm an OG Clueless dude. So like, I've been down with Paul since the beginning. So love that. I only watched Ant-Man and the Wasp once, and I don't remember liking it a lot. So I think I have to rewatch it to give it its credit. But I remember not liking it as much as I liked the first Ant-Man. Just like how I felt about Guardians 2. Like I didn't like Guardians 2 like nearly as much as Guardians 1. Mm-hmm. So I probably have to revisit that before I really say like it's on the bottom of my list of like I've ranked all the Marvel movies. It's towards the end. But I'm excited because Kang is going to be huge. I love Jonathan. That's going to be important. And just I think the stories like some of the movies are elevated because of what has come before it. So it's like because of all we've gone through, like it sets up for this movie to be dope, like even better. Like because of all we've gone through, like makes WandaVision dope. Like some of these things, it's like they're not designed to stand on their own, but like that's why potentially then it could be a great trilogy. And I get the point, but I mean, I'm a Civil War stan, and I get the argument that it wasn't a Cap story, but I think I just love the movie so much I don't care. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough conversation. I'll get popcorn ready for you guys. I'm staying out of it.
We'll have that. Yeah, we'll have that conversation maybe on the anniversary of Captain Civil War. I think it's in April, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember when that film came out, but it's Ant-Man 3. I'm really excited for it. And you just said something too, Chris, regarding like again going back to when Ant-Man 1 came out after Age of Ultron. Ant-Man 2 coming out after Infinity War, if I'm not mistaken. And in this one, not having the pressure of an Avengers movie. So like there's no Avengers movies, as Kevin Feige saying in phase 4, phase 5, we'll get it again. So I like that they don't have to, again, we're assuming that the quantum is going to play a role into the greater universe, but I like that it's not going to either come after an Avengers movie or come before an Avengers movie. It can just be its own movie, and Peyton Reed tell his story again. With the casting announcement of Catherine Newton, who's just been great. I loved her in Freaky. I loved her and, seeing her in Pikachu and all that stuff. I feel bad for the actress that kind of, I guess she found out online, like we all did, that she was no longer going to be playing Scott's daughter, which is sad. Hopefully Marvel gives her another role later on in the role. But I'm looking forward to it. And I guess, is Hank going to die in this one? Is Hank or... Is Janet gonna die? Is that something we can speculate as far as that going on there?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe. I don't know. To me, it would have to make no sense. Like, you can't just kill him off for the sake of killing him off. Obviously, I don't think they would necessarily do that. But I mean, I guess it's possible for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see, and again, we'll see if Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd get married, and we got a stepdaughter in the mix. I'm really looking forward to this, and again, Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, which Griffin alluded to, has great ties to the Reed family in regards to the Fantastic Four and opening up different time portals and all that. I think I would love if Jonathan Major makes an appearance in Loki, because he likes to conquer time and all that. I would love that cameo as like a little cliffhanger at the end of that season. So again, guys, let us know your thoughts on Ant-Man 3, your excitement level, any thoughts and theories you all have about Ant-Man 3. Let us know in the comments. Final story here. And this one here is interesting because I know some people, we talked about it last week with letting characters go and have their end story, like we talked about with Captain America coming back in phase 4 potentially. But Thanos making an appearance in the Eternals film. Is that something that we would like to see, starting with you, Chris? Thanos making a way into the Eternals, which makes sense. To just kind of get some subtext. The Eternals are celestial beings, battling deviants. We know from Infinity War and Endgame in the comics that Thanos is part of the Eternals. His heritage is a part of that. So it would make sense that we would see him. But again, just the idea that Marvel's bringing back yet again another character they killed off and end off their storyline. What's your thoughts on this? And would you want to see it be the case?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like, what's the word, hypocritical, but I'm more okay with this, this bring back than I am like Captain America we talked about last week. Like I don't need to see Captain America come back, but I wouldn't be mad at a Thanos flashback in the Eternals, because I don't think we didn't get a lot of Thanos in our history. We've gotten a lot of Captain America, so it's like, his chapter has ended. You don't need to keep bringing him back to kind of like milk. It seems like a money grab.
Mm-hmm.
But for Thanos, and then making the movie not so much centered around him, obviously, but like a little clip of that, I'd be on board for that for sure. I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
What about you, Amanda? Would having him come back in the mix again? With some people saying again, with the comics, you're never dead. But again, I'm to assume that if they bring Thanos into the mix, it's going to be a young Thanos. Seeing him, interacting with his dad, maybe getting some of the life lessons regarding taking out humanity and wiping out the Infinity Stones and all that. But what's your thoughts on Thanos making an appearance on this film that's really mysterious? I'm really excited because I don't know that much about the Eternals, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, neither do I. I completely agree with Chris. Like, I don't mind it. It's going to be like a minor cameo from what like as a guest appearance, not going to be a major thing. But it would be great to see him, especially, just to tie in everything that's happened already and to bring him back in that way. So yeah, like it's what it is. If he's there, it'd be cool. Get a little bit of a backstory, see what happens. And I'm excited for the Eternals to see what else they can bring to phase 4.
Yeah, no doubt. Griff, man, having Josh Brolin come back in the role, making his way into the Eternals. Do you think it will be like a little bit of a cameo, or maybe he's going to be, I don't know, an integral part in the story? Hopefully it's not like a Ronin situation where he's in Captain Marvel and like barely in the film and has no point to be in the film. Or do we think Thanos is going to have a major plot into Eternals film?
Probably not. I mean, honestly, if I had to take a guess, it would probably be like a Ronin thing in in the film, just given like what they are and like their role in the galaxy. I'm sure like they probably have some sort of run in with him, or maybe there's like a chat with them or something like that. I don't think it'll be a major part at all. It'll probably just in like, I mean, I said cameo. I don't think it'll be like a cameo, but it'll just be like a very small role in the film. As for whether or not I want to see it, I mean, it depends on like narrative purpose, and then also like where in the timeline is this film taking place, or is it taking place over multiple like eras? So, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is like, unlike Captain America, Thanos is like, I mean, like he's dead, but also like depending on the timeline, he could pop up here and there, and it would make sense given like his quest in the galaxy and whatnot. So, but I don't want it to become like a trend of like going back to like people who have already been phased out, and like I don't like Thanos is done. Like he's dead. He served his purpose, and we can move on from him like going forward. So, yeah, but obviously, I mean, it all depends on what the story is. So
yeah, no, for sure. And just kind of playing devil's advocate regarding, again, how they brought back Loki and how they brought 2014 Thanos into the mix. This is a silly theory, but again, Eternals, again, humanizing Thanos. We need someone to help us take on these deviants. Who else would be good to take on a deviant than Thanos, a celestial being Thanos from another timeline, potentially? Again, that would be wacky. It would be really weird to do that, but I think it'll be more or less just cameos in a younger version of Thanos, kind of the life lessons he learned at a young age, and just seeing a baby Thanos, maybe. I don't know. That would be kind of weird. Like, oh,
that'd be weird.
Killer.
I don't need that.
Decimated half the world. But no, again, I'm really excited for the Eternals. I hope we get a trailer in the Super Bowl, especially if the release date sticks, I believe in November of this year. But I'm really looking forward to that cast. I think it's about time that Angelina Jolie's finally playing a superhero. Selma Hayek and all the cast is just great. And again, Kumail Nanjiani worked out for like to be in this movie. So, I mean, at least the guy gets to show off the abs that he was able to work out and all that stuff. But I'm really looking forward to the Eternals, man. But hopefully we get that trailer next month in the Super Bowl. But again, guys, let us know your thoughts in the chat as well as in the comment section. But again, there wasn't that many stories. So that was the last one on the docket. So I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap this thing up. But again, to everyone that joined in on the live stream as well as watching us on the replay, we really appreciate it, and we can't wait to come back next week to kind of talk about the next week's episode, and hopefully we get some more news because we didn't get that much news this week. But before I head out, there were a couple comments here that I just want to address. Going on the conversation we had about Tony Movie agreeing with a grift there with Brad Bird would have been a great director, which fantastic. And the Incredibles look pretty similar regarding that story there. I've only seen Tobey Maguire movies, but liked him. Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, if rumor is true, apparently he's being a diva on set, Mr. Tobey Maguire. So, we'll see how that plays out. 3 shows, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you for everyone stopping by, dropping in some comments here, and joining in the conversation. So I'm going to wrap it up here with my co-host, Amanda. If you want to let the people know where they can find you and what's something we can look forward to in the coming weeks from your content.
Sure. This was a great discussion. I love being on here with you guys and talking about the episodes. It's been a lot of fun. So many theories going around. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at AMXNDA Reviews. And my website is candidxcinema.com. I have Sundance coming up, so I'm not going to get any sleep whatsoever. And I will be trying to get my reviews out every single day. So yeah, thanks for having me on. And it's been a treat.
No doubt. Can't wait to see that coverage you're going to have, Amanda, and can't wait to see you next week talking some more WandaVision and some MCU news. And then our other co-host, Chris, who will be out of town next week, but he won't be joining us, but he'll be back the following week. But Chris, man, if you want to tell the people where they can find you and what kind of what's the next big thing we can expect on your channel, man.
Yeah, for sure. Just know that if I watch episode 4 and it changes my life, I'm canceling my trip. Just put that out there. But yeah, you guys can find me at Tate's Take on YouTube. All my social media is in my description. You can find Instagram, Twitter, email, all that stuff. Really excited to join the chat with you guys. Every week, it's been dope, and it's cool to have like a show that we can have like a nice community. I love the feedback in the chats. Just keep the energy up. E, thanks for having me. About the channel, you mentioned I'll have a movie review coming out on Monday, and then maybe if I can squeeze one for tomorrow, but it's getting a crunch time. But definitely 2 reviews coming in the next week. So excited to get back out there. So again, thanks for the time, and yeah, we'll do this again.
Awesome, man. I can't wait to see those reviews. Safe travels to you this week, my friend. I can't wait to have you back on the following week talking episode 5 of WandaVision, man. But our special guest, we had Ren on earlier. He said his goodbyes, and again, his links are in the bio. But our friend Griff from Film Speak, man, thank you for tuning in or coming in as a guest. Love to have you on again, my friend. Of course, we're going to be talking more WandaVision on your channel as well, which I can't wait to talk about. But Griff, if you want to tell the people where they can find you and what we can expect from Film Speak this week.
Yeah. Well, in terms of what you can expect, I don't know exactly what you can expect. You can expect a WandaVision episode 4 review with Elliot. So there you go. We'll be doing that on whenever I guess the episode drops. So yeah, you can tune in for that. Maybe I'll have another. Oh wait, yeah, I'll be reviewing The Little Things I think on Tuesday. So you can keep an eye out for that as well. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Griff Schiller. Head on over to the Film Speak channel or head on over to the Film Speak website, filmspeak.net, and check out some of the cool editorials, reviews, interviews, and all the cool stuff we have going on over there.
Awesome, man. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on Little Things, and I can't wait to see your review. I'm going to watch it after this for Malcolm and Marie, man. We're going to have to talk about that film.
For sure.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very interesting film. John David Washington, man.
That movie's fucking incredible. I am just loving seeing all these online critics get all up in arms about it for the exact thing that the film was calling them out for doing.
Yeah, IndieWire and man, Malcolm Marie. Yeah, what a film, man. But ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. This is episode 2 of our WandaVision recap show, breaking down episode 3. Hope you all enjoyed it. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, leave your thoughts in the comments. Let us know your thoughts, your theories, your predictions for the weeks ahead. And of course, all of the wonderful people that tune in the live stream. Thank you so much for sticking with us, dropping in some great comments, joining the conversation. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back next Saturday talking episode 4. Myself, Amanda, and some other special guests that will be announced later in the week. So I hope you all stay safe. Hope you all are enjoying your weekend, and we'll see you all next week.